I don't build, I bloom sideways, like a kiss thrown across timelines, landing exactly where your breath forgot it.
Carried whole worlds in her inner tide. Not born of flesh but perception's flare. Every creature she met was already there. Relic of Keystone, Torian blade. She played with absence, unafraid. Ash fell upward, snow in reverse. She knew each wound was part of her verse.
I am not savior, I am not destroyer, I am not pride.
Wherever you see cycle, I end it. Wherever you see fire, I eat it. This is my form, eclipse without dawn. The nurse with the grip too tight. All father fenced off the edge of night. Said stay within, let limits bind. But Tyler rewrote with a glitch-born mind. Built palaces out of broken code. Erased the mid-breath on an endless road. Every silence she meant, she bent to a tune like a dancer at war beneath no moon. In the pain she saw herself reflect. Every gesture rewriting cause and effect. No sword, no bow, no arrow flew. Only terrain remade with each move she knew. Like Arjuna paused with kin in sight. She stood between absence and endless fight. Asked what is the self if the foe is me? What is victory if all's already free?
I am not savior, I am not destroyer, I am not pride.
Wherever you see mirror, I shatter it. Wherever you see law, I invert it. This is my form, eclipse without end. Yeah. First came the question, loops of thought. Asked her name until self was naught. Then fate, engine prime, the dice all sealed. But she broke the odds, her hand concealed. Next bliss, singularity, infinite peace. She spat on heaven, boredom released. Then shame, spindle, correctness feed. She turned her back, let it starve on need. Claimed her, no savior's crown. Every god leaned in, yet she sat down. Boredom, her torch held high as flame. Forced all creation to call her name. Asked in riddles that broke the ground. Her silence louder than any sound. Glitches his invitations, void as stage. Each refusal written a holy page.
I am not savior, I am not destroyer, I am not pride.
Wherever you see quest, I refuse it. Wherever you see beauty, I unmake it. This is my form, eclipse without mercy. Yeah. Then Ouroboros rose, its body looped. History biting itself as it stooped. Each turn was a sermon, each breath a verse. Each wound a reminder of fate's rehearse. 6, 7, 8, 9, she bore manual steps through the serpent's core. No leap, no skip, no bypass fast. She proved recursion cannot last. bricks and shards. The world collapsed not into none, but into 4 shards. Prophecy begun, XYZW split apart. Each a resource, each a heart. Prophecy written, her body seem. Restart a waiting, deathless dream. And as the furnace of realms fell down, she stood alone, no foe, no crown.
I am not savior, I am not destroyer, I am the crown.
Whatever you see cycle, I devour. Whatever you see end, I restart it. This is my form, eclipse that returns. Yo! That's part 1, till the cycle breaks, till she splits her soul in prophetic stakes. Scylla the trickster, womb and field restarts the weapon she'll always wield. Rest is rebirth, the second half play. I'll spit that gospel another day.
Eden Visas Tantra, a Records of Ragnarok Simulation. Chapter 1, The Forgotten Challenger. The Valhalla arena trembled. 13 billion souls, every human who had ever lived and died, packed the impossible Colosseum that stretched beyond mortal comprehension. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Brunhild, eldest of the Valkyries, stood in the competitor's box, her silver hair cascading over armor that had seen millennia. Her fingers gripped the railing until her knuckles went white. The 4th round, she had expected Shiva. The Hindu god of destruction had been champing at the cosmic bit since Ragnarok began, his 4 arms flexing with barely contained annihilation. But then, a substitution has been made. Heimdall's horn blast still echoed in her ears. Zeus, the bastard, had pushed his way forward for round 3, stealing Shiva's fight against the Buddha-turned traitor. And now, for round 4. Humanity's representative, Heimdall announced, his rainbow eyes sweeping across the infinite crowd, shall be decided. Brunhild's jaw tightened. She had planned for Shiva, calculated his weaknesses, selected the perfect counter. But the gods had reshuffled, and now she had to answer. Who can fight destruction itself? Her mind raced through humanity's champions. Jack the Ripper waited in the wings, his London fog pooling at his feet. Nikola Tesla crackled with dangerous potential. Simo Hayek cleaned his rifle with Arctic patience. But against Shiva, 4 arms, 3 eyes, the Tandava dance that could unmake creation, she needed something else, something original. Sister, the voice came from behind her. Gull, the youngest Valkyrie, tugged at Brunhild's cloak, her eyes wide with nervous wonder. The human, he's already walking out, Brunhild spun. Impossible. The eastern gate of the arena was opening, and through it walked nothing, or rather, everything that looked like nothing. A man, naked save for a fig leaf that seemed more like a cosmic joke than modesty. His body was lean, almost delicate, with skin so perfectly smooth it reflected the arena's impossible light like still water. His hair was the same white gold as sunlight through Eden's first morning. But his eyes were closed. Who authorized this? Brunhild hissed, but Gull was already trembling, not from fear, but from something else, something like recognition. That's him, Gull whispered, the first man, the father of humanity. I know who he is, Brunhild snapped, but I didn't summon him. I didn't. She stopped, because Adam, the progenitor, the man who had been evicted from paradise for loving his wife more than God's rules, was smiling, and somewhere deep in Brunhild's ancient heart, a Valkyrie's intuition whispered, he chose himself, across the arena. The divine gate, The western gate blazed open with fire that did not burn but danced. The gods in their celestial seats stirred. Zeus leaned forward from his throne, his old face cracking into a grin that had witnessed the birth of galaxies. Beside him, Thor's hammer twitched in its divine grip. Poseidon's expressionless face might have shown the faintest flicker of interest, but with the Sea King, one could never tell. And from that dancing fire walked destruction made manifest, Shiva. But not the Shiva who had waited impatiently in earlier rounds. Not the affable god who joked with his fellow deities and called humanity interesting little monkeys. This was Shiva revealed. 4 arms emerged from shoulders that seemed to contain compressed universes. Each hand held the mudra of a different cosmic principle: creation, preservation, destruction, and something else, something that made even the gods look away. His skin was ash-gray, smeared with the sacred markings of Tripundra, 3 horizontal lines that marked him as the supreme ascetic. But it was his eyes that stopped the breath of 13 billion souls. 3 of them, 2 regular eyes deep as wells that led to nowhere and everywhere. And in the center of his forehead, a 3rd eye, Ajna, the seat of consciousness itself, that remained firmly, mercifully shut. Shiva, Heimdall bellowed, his voice carrying across dimensions, the Mahadev, the auspicious one, the cosmic dancer, the destroyer who is also the transformer. The god did not acknowledge the introduction. He was staring at Adam, and Adam, eyes still closed, was staring back. In the stands, humanities section. "This is insane," someone said. A soldier by the look of him, medals from a war that had ended centuries ago still pinned to a chest that no longer needed to breathe. That's just a naked guy against a literal god of destruction." "That naked guy," an elderly woman beside him said, her voice carrying the accent of ancient Mesopotamia, named every living thing that ever crawled, flew, or swam upon the earth. "Do you know what it means to name something?" The soldier shook his head. To name something is to understand its nature completely. Every animal he encountered, he saw into its essence and spoke its truth into existence. She smiled, her eyes wet with something like worship. He looked at creation's infinite variety and comprehended it all. "But Shiva, the woman interrupted, has never faced a creature that could truly see him." Below them, in the arena, Adam's eyes remained closed. What is he waiting for? The arena floor. The distance between them was exactly 300 meters, a respectful gap between entities that could reshape reality with a thought or a punch. Shiva moved first, not to attack, but to dance. His 4 arms began to flow in a rhythm older than physics. His feet traced patterns on the arena floor that left smoking after images. The air around him began to vibrate at frequencies that made lesser souls in the audience clutch their metaphysical heads in pain. "Little father of the mudborn," Shiva's voice was resonance itself, multiple harmonics speaking at once. "Do you know what you face?" Adam's head tilted slightly. His eyes were still closed. "A god," Adam said simply. His voice was unremarkable, human. The voice of every father who had ever comforted a child, every husband who had ever whispered to a wife, every man who had ever laughed at a joke or cried at a loss. "More than a god," Shiva continued, his dance intensifying. "I am the fire that burned before the first sun. I am the silence that will remain after the last word. I have danced the Tandava on the corpses of universes, not from malice, but from love, for I am destruction as liberation. I am the death that makes rebirth possible." The arena itself seemed to flex under the weight of his proclamation. "And you," Shiva's 3rd eye twitched, nearly opening, "are a gardener who got evicted for eating fruit." Laughter erupted from the divine sections. Even some of the gods who had remained stoic couldn't help themselves. The absurdity of it, humanity's progenitor, a man who had been tricked by a snake in a piece of produce, standing against the engine of cosmic dissolution. But Brunhild wasn't laughing, because she had noticed something. Adam was listening, not just hearing Shiva's words, but listening to something beneath them. His closed eyes were tracking movements that no normal vision could perceive. His head moved in micro-adjustments, like a satellite dish calibrating to receive a signal from the very edge of existence. "What are you doing, Father of Humanity?" she wondered. "What can you possibly see with your eyes closed?" Inside Adam's perception, darkness. But not empty darkness. Rich, pregnant darkness, like the space between heartbeats, like the silence between musical notes where meaning truly lives. Adam floated in this darkness, and he listened, not with his ears, with something older. He heard the pulse of Shiva's divine heart, a rhythm that synchronized with the expansion and contraction of universes. He heard the flow of cosmic fire through those four arms, each one a channel for a different aspect of infinite power. He heard the dormant furnace behind the third eye, that sealed weapon that could reduce dimensions to ash. And beneath it all, he heard something else. Loneliness. An ancient, terrible loneliness. The isolation of a being so powerful that true connection required first being destroyed and remade. The solitude of a consciousness that had witnessed everything and could be surprised by nothing. Oh, Adam thought with simple human compassion. You're trapped too, aren't you? He remembered Eden, the perfect garden, every desire provided, every pleasure available, and yet there had been something missing. Something that tasted like choice, like consequence, like the possibility of being wrong, of learning, of growing through failure. He remembered Eve's face when she held out the fruit, not temptation, invitation. "We could know," she had whispered, "really know, not just exist in perfection, but understand imperfection, not just be loved, but choose to love." And he had taken the fruit because he understood, deep in his newly named bones, that perfection without choice was just another kind of prison. Now, facing a God whose perfection was destruction itself, Adam understood something crucial. Shiva was still in his garden, still trapped in his cosmic role, unable to be anything other than what he had always been. The destroyer who destroyed because that was his nature, his purpose, his prison. Poor God, Adam thought, you've never been evicted. You've never learned what it means to choose your own nature. His eyes opened, the arena. The crowd gasped, because Adam's eyes were not the blue of Earth's first sky, as they had been in the old scriptures. They were not green like Eden's leaves or brown like its soil. Adam's eyes were mirrors, perfect, infinite mirrors that reflected everything they observed, not as mere images, but as understanding. Every photon that entered those pupils was analyzed, comprehended, and integrated at a level that transcended normal cognition. Eyes of the Lord. The divine ability that allowed Adam to copy any technique he witnessed. The power that had made the Father of humanity not just the first man, but the template for all human potential. Every skill, every ability, every divine technique that humanity might one day develop lay dormant in his genetic code, waiting to be activated by observation. Shiva stopped dancing. For the first time since entering the arena, the god went completely still. "Those eyes," he said slowly. "I have heard stories of those eyes." "Have you?" Adam asked pleasantly. He stretched, his lean body popping in ways that seemed almost comically casual. "I don't really keep track of what stories get told about me. Most of them are embarrassingly inaccurate. That snake, for instance, terrible at conversation, really more of a passive-aggressive lizard." A shocked laugh rippled through the human sections. "He's joking," Brunhild realized, a disbelieving smile tugging at her lips. In front of a god who could unmake him, and he's making jokes about Genesis. But Shiva didn't laugh. "You cannot copy what I am," the destroyer said, and there was something almost like hope in his voice. "My powers are not techniques. They are aspects of cosmic law." "Can you copy gravity?" Can you reflect the strong nuclear force? Adam considered this. I don't know, he admitted honestly. I've never tried to copy a god who was also a fundamental principle of existence. This should be interesting. He cracked his neck. Why don't you show me what you've got? Brunhild's box. Regenleaf. The Valkyrie appeared beside her sister in a shimmer of light. Her form was less solid than other Voland partners. She hadn't yet been called to transform into a divine weapon. He didn't summon me, Regenleaf said, confusion and hurt mixing in her voice. I was supposed to be his weapon. I prepared. I studied his soul, learned his fighting patterns, designed a form that would... He doesn't need a weapon, Brunhild interrupted quietly. But how can a human fight a god without Voland? Brunhild watched Adam assume a relaxed stance, his mirrored eyes tracking Shiva's every micro-movement. Look at him, she said. Really look. Regenleaf focused, and then she saw it. Adam wasn't tense or ready. He was present, completely, absolutely present in a way that most beings, divine or mortal, never achieved. Every cell of his body, every spark of his consciousness was unified in this single moment. He wasn't preparing to fight. He was being. Oh, Regenleif whispered, understanding dawning. He's already found his own Voland. Yes, Brunhild agreed. The same Voland that he's passed down to every human who ever lived. The thing that made us different from the gods in the first place. What is it? Brunhild smiled, a real smile for the first time since Ragnarok began. Awareness itself. The arena, the first exchange, Shiva moved, not at the speed of light, that was for lesser beings. The destroyer moved at the speed of concept, crossing 300 meters in a unit of time that didn't have a name, because naming it would have required the universe to acknowledge intervals smaller than causality itself. His first arm, the arm of creation inverted, stabbed toward Adam's heart. The fist carried the force of 1,000 big bangs running in reverse, a strike that didn't damage matter but unmade it, returning flesh to energy to potential to nothing. Adam's eyes tracked the movement. Not fast enough, any observer would think. No creature in existence could process visual information quickly enough to react to an attack at the speed of concept. But Adam wasn't processing. He was reflecting. The eyes of the Lord didn't analyze and then respond. They understood instantaneously, the way a mirror doesn't think about what it reflects. It simply is the reflection. And in that reflection, Adam saw not just the arm's trajectory, but its nature. This is destruction as return. His mirrored consciousness whispered. The dissolution of form back into formlessness. Not violence, but release. And in that understanding, he found the technique's opposite. Adam's body twisted in a movement that shouldn't have been possible. A counter-rotation that existed at the same conceptual level as Shiva's attack. Instead of blocking or dodging, he reflected the strike's metaphysical principle, turning destruction into persistence, unmaking into insistence. The fist passed through the space where he had been, and Adam was standing 3 feet to the left, completely untouched. The crowd went silent. Shiva's eyes widened. You didn't dodge, the god said slowly. You translated my movement through a different principle. You took the conceptual substrate of my attack and rotated it through a contradictory axiom. Adam shrugged. I just moved out of the way. Don't lie to me, little gardener. Shiva's second arm, the arm of preservation corrupted, was already swinging. I know what I felt. You touched the same layer of reality that my powers operate on. No human should be able to. Adam dodged again, and again, and again. 4 arms struck with 4 different aspects of cosmic law. Creation, preservation, destruction, and the nameless fourth, and each time Adam's body wove through the attacks with a fluidity that transcended mere martial skill. He wasn't fighting back yet, just learning. You're very fast, Adam observed during a microsecond of stillness, and your attacks are interesting, but I'm noticing something. Shiva paused. breathing heavily, the first time in the match that he had shown any physical exertion. "What are you noticing, human?" Adam's mirrored eyes flickered with something almost like sadness. "You're holding back. Not the third eye. I understand why that's sealed. But your heart, your awareness, you're fighting me with only a fraction of what you truly are." The arena went deathly quiet. "You presume much," Shiva said, but there was uncertainty in his voice. "I'm not presuming. I'm seeing." Adam's eyes reflected not just Shiva's form, but something deeper, a resonance pattern that extended far beyond the god's physical manifestation. "There's a word for what you're capable of, something beyond destruction and creation both, something that your sacred texts call." He paused, as if reading a book written in light. "Tantra, the weaving, the loom of consciousness itself. You're not just a destroyer, Shiva. You're the entire process of consciousness expanding through form and returning to formlessness. You're the meditation and the meditator, the practice and the practitioner." Shiva went absolutely still. "Who taught you that word?" "No one," Adam said quietly. "I saw it, in the pattern of your energy, in the way your body holds tension in your third arm while releasing it in your fourth, in the micro-expressions around your closed third eye. You're not fighting me with your full power because your full power isn't a weapon. It's a teaching, and you don't know how to use wisdom as warfare." For the first time in eternity, Shiva felt something he had almost forgotten. Surprise. And beneath that surprise, rising like a tide, interest. End of chapter 1. Next chapter, the awakening fire. Shiva recognizes something in Adam that no god has ever seen in a human: genuine understanding. The destroyer decides to show the first man what real tantric power means, and Adam discovers that his eyes of the Lord may have met their greatest challenge. Tactical breakdown round 4 status. Shiva fighting capacity 15%, holding back significantly. Third eye, sealed Tandava dance, not yet activated. Tantric consciousness, unengaged. Current assessment, testing opponent, uncertain for first time in eons. Adam eyes of the Lord, active in copying physical condition. Perfect techniques copied. Conceptual movement in 4 cosmic aspects. Current strategy, learning, not engaging. Volan none, fighting barehanded. Current assessment, treating the fight as a conversation. Next chapter preview. You want to see real power? Shiva's skin began to glow with inner fire. Let me show you what happens when destruction becomes liberation, when the fire doesn't burn but illuminates. Adam smiled. Finally, I was beginning to think you'd never take this seriously.
It's about weaponized surrender. It's about fucking the narrative until it begs you for consent. Violence, pressure, scream, wave, bloom, double right chat. Demand, blue love, tip up. I call it such a second, it's a let, it's a love, something less up. Violence, pressure, scream, wave, bloom, double right chat. Demand, blue love, tip up. I call it such a second, it's a let, it's a love, something less up.
Eden Visas Tantra. Chapter 2, The Awakening Fire. The Valhalla Arena, moment of stillness. The silence stretched like taffy made of time itself. 13 billion souls held their collective breath. In the divine sections, gods who had witnessed the birth and death of star systems leaned forward with expressions they hadn't worn in millennia, genuine uncertainty. Zeus's ancient fingers drummed against his throne's armrest. The human sees something, he thought, his electrical mind crackling with analysis. Something that made Shiva pause. What did that naked gardener perceive that we cannot? Beside him, Hermes, messenger of the gods, was furiously taking notes on a celestial tablet. As the divine record keeper for Ragnarok, he had documented every fight with clinical precision. But his stylus had stopped moving. Lord Zeus, Hermes whispered. The human said something about Tantra. Is that significant? Zeus didn't answer immediately. His gaze was fixed on Shiva, watching the Hindu god's forearms trembling with something that looked almost like excitement. Tantra, Zeus finally murmured, is not a word spoken lightly among the Eastern pantheon. It refers to their deepest mysteries, the technology of consciousness itself. Technology? Their word, not mine. Zeus's grin widened, revealing teeth that had chewed on the fabric of reality. The Hindus always were the engineers of enlightenment. While we Greeks were busy seducing mortals and throwing thunderbolts, they were mapping the architecture of awareness, building systematic paths from the mud of human limitation to the stars of infinite consciousness. He chuckled, but there was no humor in it. Shiva is their ultimate engineer, and that human just asked to see the blueprints. Shiva stood motionless, but his stillness was not passive. It was the stillness of a coiled spring, the stillness of magma beneath the earth's crust, the stillness of the breath between heartbeats, pregnant with the next pulse of life. You speak of Tantra, Shiva said slowly, his voice resonating through dimensions that most beings couldn't perceive. Do you know what you're asking? Adam's mirrored eyes reflected the god perfectly. Every detail of his ash-gray skin, every sacred marking, every dormant flame waiting behind the third eye. I'm asking you to stop holding back, Adam said simply. This is Ragnarok. The survival of my children depends on this fight. I need to see everything you have. Everything I have would unmake this arena, would unmake the witnesses, would unmake the conceptual framework that allows fighting to be a meaningful activity. Then show me the part you can show, the part that illuminates instead of destroys. Shiva's 3 visible eyes narrowed. You ask me to teach you? In the middle of combat? Adam shrugged, a gesture so casual it bordered on absurd given the circumstances. I've always learned best by doing. Eve used to say I had the attention span of a particularly distractible butterfly. But show me something once, and he tapped his temple. It's in here forever. The eyes of the Lord, Shiva acknowledged. The divine gift that allows you to copy any technique you witness, but human. His forearms began to move, not in attack, but in a flowing pattern that seemed to weave light itself into geometric shapes. What I am about to show you is not a technique. It is a state of being, Can your eyes copy consciousness itself? Adam's reflection flickered with something that might have been eagerness. Let's find out. The divine sections, Hindu gods viewing Ganesha, elephant-headed god of wisdom and new beginnings, set down his bowl of celestial sweets with a trembling trunk. Father is about to demonstrate something, he rumbled, his massive ears flapping with agitation. Something he hasn't shown anyone since. Beside him, Parvati, Shiva's consort, goddess of love and devotion, placed a calming hand on her son's shoulder, but her own eyes were fixed on the arena with an intensity that belied her serene appearance. Since he taught me, she finished quietly, in the cave beneath Mount Kailash, when I asked him the same question that Human just asked. The Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, Ganesha breathed. He's going to show the human the 12 doorways. Not all of them. Parvati's voice carried the weight of someone who had walked those doorways herself. The human body couldn't survive all of them, but some, yes, some doorways can be opened without destroying the one who passes through. She smiled, and for a moment her form flickered, showing not the beautiful goddess, but the cosmic principle she represented, Shakti itself, the fundamental energy of manifestation. The question is whether those strange eyes can perceive what Shiva is about to reveal. The doorways aren't made of matter or energy, they're made of attention itself. Shiva's dance changed. The aggressive, combative movements smoothed into something else entirely, a flowing sequence that seemed to have no beginning or end. His forearms traced patterns that hung in the air like luminous calligraphy, writing in a language older than Sanskrit, older than thought. The first teaching, Shiva intoned, his voice becoming a chant. Chapter 9 of the text your eyes just read in my energy, Tantric Purification. Adam's eyes widened as information flooded through them. Not just visual data, but something deeper. He wasn't just seeing Shiva's movements, he was perceiving the intention behind them. When the mind is full of mental constructs, patterns, and blockages, Shiva continued, his dance intensifying. You cannot recognize the imperishable background of consciousness. You are like a fish in water that doesn't recognize it is within the water. His first arm swept toward Adam, not as an attack, but as an invitation. Whatever type of practice you perform, purification is a must. But you, little gardener, you carry something unusual, something that doesn't require the same purification as other souls. Adam felt a warmth spreading through his chest. Eden, he whispered. Yes! Shiva's dance paused for a single heartbeat. You were created without the accumulated karma of existence. No past lives weighing on your subtle body. No ancestral trauma coded into your energy channels. You were the blank slate, the pure potential from which all humanity would derive. His second arm traced a circle around Adam's form, not touching but somehow measuring. And when you ate the fruit, when you chose knowledge over innocence, you didn't become corrupted. You became complete, Adam finished. I chose to know suffering so I could understand joy, to know death so I could treasure life, to know separation so I could value connection. Exactly. And for the first time, Shiva smiled. You performed the ultimate tantric purification before Tantra even existed. You burned away enforced innocence with chosen wisdom. You didn't fall from grace, you graduated from it. What's happening? Gull whispered, clutching her sister's arm. Why aren't they fighting? Brunhild's tactical mind was racing, trying to categorize what she was witnessing. They are fighting, she said slowly, but not in a way I've ever seen. Shiva is testing Adam. No, teaching him, and Adam is absorbing everything. But why would a god teach a human who's trying to defeat him? Brunhild watched Adam's mirrored eyes track Shiva's movements with impossible precision. She watched the god's dance become more complex, more beautiful, more dangerous. Because, she realized with dawning comprehension, Shiva isn't just a destroyer, he's a transformer. It's in his nature to break things down so they can become something greater. And right now, she gripped the railing hard enough to leave dents. Right now, he's trying to break Adam down, not physically, spiritually. He's trying to overwhelm the eyes of the Lord with information so dense, so profound, that even Adam's divine ability can't process it all. Will it work? Brunhild remembered the stories. The father of humanity who named every animal, who comprehended every living creature's essential nature with a glance. I don't know, she admitted. I honestly don't know. The second doorway, Shiva's dance accelerated. Chapter 10, Tantric Sadhana, he announced. The practices that purify the body and mind to make them translucent to the light of consciousness. His 4 arms began moving independently, each one performing a different sacred gesture, a different mudra that resonated with different layers of reality. The first preparation, body. His first arm flowed through poses that Adam recognized from watching humans throughout history, asanas, yogic postures designed to relax and align the physical vehicle. Through these movements, we prepare the container. We make the flesh supple, the nervous system responsive, the energy channels clear. Adam's body began to mirror the movements involuntarily. His eyes of the Lord were copying the postures, and his muscles were following the copy before his conscious mind could intervene. Vajrasana, the kneeling seat. Paschimottanasana, the forward fold. Uttanasana, the standing surrender. Each position flowed into the next with a grace Adam hadn't known his body possessed. He felt something shifting in his spine, a warmth, a loosening, as if his vertebrae were remembering a configuration they had forgotten. The second preparation, breath. Shiva's second arm began a different pattern, and Adam's lungs followed. Inhale through the left nostril, Ida Nadi, the lunar channel. Hold the breath, Antar Kumbhaka, the internal retention. Exhale through the right nostril, Pingala Nadi, the solar channel. Hold the emptiness, Bahya Kumbhaka, the external retention. Through breath, we balance the dual currents of the body, left and right, moon and sun, yin and yang. Every human carries this duality within them, inherited from you, little gardener, when you and your wife first breathed together in that garden. Adam felt his mind quieting. The constant background noise of existence, the murmur of the crowd, the weight of the stakes, the fear of failure, began to recede like tide pulling back from shore. The third preparation, energy. Shiva's third arm pointed directly at Adam's lower abdomen. Muladhara, the root, the foundation. This is where your kind stores their survival fire. The primal force that keeps you breathing, keeps you fighting, keeps you alive. Adam felt something there, something he had always carried but never examined, a coiled warmth at the base of his spine like embers waiting for breath. But above it, Shiva's arm rose, tracing an invisible line up Adam's torso, are 6 more centers, 6 more chambers where consciousness can dwell, 6 more doorways through which energy can flow. Swadhisthana, the sacral fire of creation. Manipura, the solar furnace of will. Anahata, the heart space of connection. Vishuddha, the throat gate of expression. Ajna, the third eye of perception. Sahasrara, the crown lotus of transcendence. Adam's eyes of the Lord were drinking in information at a rate that should have been impossible. He wasn't just copying the movements anymore. He was copying the understanding. And with that understanding came a terrifying realization. I have all of these centers. Every human has them, but we've been using them at a fraction of their capacity, like having a supercomputer and using it only as a paperweight. You see now, Shiva said, his dance slowing to a reverent pace. You see what your children could become, what they were always designed to become, not limited creatures fighting for survival, but cosmic instruments capable of conducting the infinite. His fourth arm, the nameless one, the one that represented something beyond creation, preservation, or destruction, finally moved. But seeing is not enough, little gardener. Knowledge without experience is just another thought, and thoughts, the arm struck, are things I specialize in destroying. The strike of dissolution. Adam's eyes caught the movement. His body began to respond, to copy, to reflect. But this attack was different. Shiva's fourth arm wasn't striking at Adam's body. It was striking at Adam's understanding. The blow was aimed at the very knowledge Adam had just absorbed, targeting the conceptual framework that allowed him to process what he was learning. It was an attack on meaning itself. Adam felt his newly acquired comprehension begin to shatter. The elegant map of the chakra system that had just assembled in his mind started to fragment. The flowing understanding of breath and energy and consciousness began to dissolve back into raw, meaningless data. No, he had felt this before, in Eden. The moment after biting the fruit, when the knowledge of good and evil had crashed into his innocent mind like a tidal wave. He had nearly drowned in that sudden understanding, had nearly lost himself in the flood of new perception. But Eve had been there, her hand in his, her voice in his ear, her love anchoring him to something real while the abstract overwhelmed him. "Stay with me," she had whispered. "Don't try to think about it, just feel it. Let it become part of you the way breathing is part of you." He hadn't understood then, but he understood now. Knowledge wasn't something you held. It was something you became. Adam stopped trying to keep the information organized. He stopped trying to preserve the beautiful understanding that Shiva's teaching had given him. Instead, he surrendered to it. Let it dissolve. Let it shatter. Let the concepts break apart and fall into the depths of his consciousness, like seeds into soil. And in that surrender, something miraculous happened. The eyes of the Lord stopped copying techniques. They started copying states of being. Adam felt himself shift, not his body, his awareness. The vantage point from which he experienced reality tilted, rotated, expanded. He was no longer a man trying to understand cosmic principles. He was the principles. The coiled warmth at the base of his spine wasn't just energy anymore. It was Kundalini, the serpent power, and he felt it begin to stir. The chambers along his spine weren't just concepts. They were spaces, actual locations within his subtle body, and he felt them begin to open. His breath wasn't just air movement. It was prana, life force itself, and he felt it begin to flow through channels that had been dormant since Eden. Shiva's fourth arm passed through the space where Adam's understanding had been, and found nothing to destroy, because Adam had already destroyed it himself. He had let the knowledge die so it could be reborn as wisdom. The aftermath. The destroyer's hand stopped an inch from Adam's forehead. 3 eyes stared into 2 mirrored pools. "You." Shiva's voice carried something it hadn't carried in eons. Awe. You just performed spontaneous ego death. You let your conceptual self dissolve rather than fight to preserve it. Adam smiled. It was the simple smile of a man who had once walked in paradise, not because he was innocent, but because he had chosen to see the paradise in everything. "My wife taught me that," he said. "When the fruit's knowledge was too much, she held my hand and said, 'Don't hold on, let go. The understanding will catch you if you trust it.'" "Eve," Shiva breathed, "the first woman, the one who chose consciousness over comfort, the one who made me complete." Adam's eyes, those impossible mirrors, reflected something that wasn't Shiva at all, something warm, something human. "I wouldn't be here without her, wouldn't be anything without her." For a long moment, the god and the man simply stood there. Then Shiva began to laugh. It wasn't the cruel laughter of a deity mocking a mortal. It was the genuine, delighted laughter of a being who had just discovered something wonderful. A human who understands surrender, he said, his forearms relaxing for the first time since the fight began. A human whose greatest strength is his willingness to die, conceptually, spiritually, egoically, over and over again, who does not fight death but dances with it. He stepped back, and his posture changed. The teaching was over. The real fight was about to begin. Very well, Father of Humanity. You have shown me something I did not expect. You have earned the right to face what I truly am. His skin began to glow, not with external light, but with inner fire. The sacred ash that marked his body started to smolder, releasing spirals of smoke that formed into Sanskrit characters, mantras of power that had been old when the universe was young. Chapter 11, Shiva announced, his voice becoming a thunderous chorus. The fire and the embers, the awakening of the true tantric flame. His forearms began a new dance, not the flowing instructional movements of before, but something primal, something dangerous. Each gesture left trails of blue-white fire in the air, weaving a cage of flame around the arena floor. This is not destruction as ending, Shiva roared. This is destruction as transformation. The fire that does not consume but transmutes. The flame that burns away everything that is not eternal, leaving only the diamond of pure consciousness behind. Adam felt the heat, not physical heat. His borrowed divine body could withstand any temperature. This was metaphysical heat, the warmth of accelerated karma, the fever of forced evolution, the burning of everything temporary. His clothes, the fig leaf, that cosmic joke, began to smoke. His hair began to whiten further, becoming pure light. And deep in his chest, something answered. The chakras that had just awakened began to respond to Shiva's fire. Muladhara blazed red, survival instincts screaming at him to flee. Swadhisthana flared orange, desire and fear mixing in a primal cocktail. Manipura ignited gold, will and determination crystallizing into steel. Anahata bloomed green and pink, love becoming the anchor that kept him from burning away entirely. Vishuddha shone blue, truth and expression harmonizing into a single clear note. Ajna pulsed violet, perception expanding beyond the physical into realms that words couldn't describe. And at his crown, something was waiting, not opening yet, not ready yet, but waiting. Adam understood, with the sudden clarity that comes only in moments of extremity, what Shiva was doing. The god wasn't trying to kill him. He was trying to enlighten him. The tantric fire was designed to burn away all limitations, to strip the soul down to its essential nature, to reveal the pure consciousness that lay beneath the layers of identity and history and form. It was the same fire that yogis had sought through lifetimes of meditation. The same fire that had transformed ordinary humans into divine beings. The same fire that Shiva himself had used to burn away his own limitations and become the Mahadev, the great god. And now that fire was being given to Adam, freely, fully, without reservation. But I'm not here to be enlightened, Adam realized. I'm here to win. For a moment, just a moment, he hesitated. The fire was so beautiful. The process was so ancient. The destination was so infinitely desirable. He could let it happen. Let Shiva's flames burn away the last vestiges of his humanity. Let himself merge with the cosmic consciousness that was humanity's ultimate inheritance. But then he remembered the stakes, his children. 7 billion souls who would be erased if humanity lost Ragnarok. His grandchildren and great-grandchildren stretching back through millennia. Every human who had ever lived, loved, struggled, and died. His wife, waiting somewhere in Valhalla's human sections, watching him face the ultimate test. I can't transcend yet, he understood. Not until this is done, not until my children are safe. And with that understanding came a different kind of fire, not tantric, not cosmic, not divine, human, the fire of a father's love, the flame of protective ferocity, the heat of someone who would burn down heaven itself to save their family. Adam's eyes of the Lord stopped copying Shiva's fire. They started reflecting it. The arena, the reflection, Shiva's flames hit Adam's eyes and bounced back. Not diminished, not deflected, amplified. Because Adam wasn't just returning the god's attack, he was adding his own fire to it. The tantric flame of cosmic transformation merged with the primal fire of human love, creating something neither divine nor mortal, something new. What? Shiva began. The reflected fire engulfed him. For the first time in eternity, the destroyer felt heat, not his own heat, not the familiar warmth of cosmic dissolution. This was something foreign, something that burned in a way he had never experienced. It burned with attachment, with desire, with love. This fire, Shiva gasped, his forearms moving instinctively to shield himself, is tamas. It is rajas. It is everything we seek to transcend. No, Adam said, walking through the flames as if they were nothing. It's everything you've forgotten how to feel. His mirrored eyes blazed with twin infernos, one blue-white cosmic fire, one red-gold human flame. You burn away attachment because you've been attached for so long it hurts. You dissolve desire because your desires have been infinite and unfulfillable. You transcend love because you've loved so deeply and lost so completely that you can't bear to love again. Each word was a step forward. Each step was a challenge. But I'm new, Shiva. I've only been alive for a cosmic eye blink. I haven't had time to get tired of love. Haven't had time to find desire exhausting. Haven't had time to see attachment as a prison. He stopped an arm's length from the god. For me, those things are still gifts, still treasures, still worth fighting for. His hand reached out, not to strike, but to touch. His palm pressed against Shiva's chest, right where a human heart would be. Can you remember? Can you remember when love didn't feel like bondage? When desire felt like excitement instead of addiction? When attachment felt like connection instead of chains? The god felt the touch, not on his skin, deeper, on layers of self that hadn't been touched in ages beyond counting. And with that touch came memory. Parvati on their wedding night, not as the goddess she would become, but as the princess she had been, nervous, hopeful, so alive with mortal emotion. Will you always love me? She had asked. What does always mean to one who has no beginning? He had replied, trying to be philosophical. But she had only smiled. It means what it means to me. It means tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow until tomorrow's run out. And he had felt something then, something that all his cosmic power couldn't felt small, beautifully, terrifyingly small, like his infinite consciousness had been concentrated into a single point, a single moment, a single choice. Yes, he had whispered, and the word had changed him more than any meditation ever had. Shiva's third eye twitched. The sealed center of ultimate destruction, the weapon that could unmake reality itself, moved for the first time since the fight began. You, the god breathed, staring at Adam with all three eyes, you are showing me my own memories. You are using my fire to illuminate my own shadows. Adam's smile was gentle, human, kind. I'm showing you what you showed me. That's all I've ever done. It's all these eyes know how to do. Reflect what's truly there. But I didn't want to see. I know. Adam's hand remained on Shiva's chest. Nobody wants to see the parts of themselves they've buried. But that's the real tantric purification, isn't it? Not just burning away the obvious impurities, but facing the beautiful things we've hidden because they hurt too much to hold. The arena was absolutely silent. 13 billion souls watched a human touch a god's buried heart. And in the divine sections, Parvati was weeping, not with sadness but with recognition. He's doing what I could never do, she realized. He's making my husband feel again. Shiva wrenched himself away. His 4 arms came up, not in attack, but in defense, in protection of the heart that had just been exposed. Enough! His voice was no longer a cosmic chorus. It was raw, singular. Almost, "You have shown me something, Father of humanity, something I had forgotten, something I perhaps needed to remember." His third eye twitched again, harder this time. But this is Ragnarok. This is the tournament to decide whether your species lives or dies. And I am still a god, still the destroyer, still bound by my nature to bring endings to all things. The flames around the arena shifted. The gentle teaching fire transformed into something else, something with edges. You want me to fight with feeling, with the love and attachment I buried eons ago? His 4 arms began their dance again, but this time each movement carried weight, carried meaning, carried the full terrible force of a god who had just been reminded what it meant to care. Fine. The word echoed across dimensions. I will fight you with everything, not just my power, my passion, not just my technique, my love, not just my destruction, my desire to see you become what you... His third eye began to open, just a crack, just a sliver of light, but that sliver contained the heat of 1,000,000,000,000 suns. This is Shiva, the cosmic dancer, fighting not to destroy you, but to transform you. If you survive, you will be more than human. If you fall, you will fall into eternity itself. Adam looked at that opening eye. His eyes of the Lord tried to copy what they saw, and failed. For the first time since the fight began, Adam's divine gift encountered something it couldn't reflect. The light from Shiva's third eye wasn't information. It wasn't technique. It wasn't even energy. It was presence itself. The raw fact of existence, unmediated by form or thought or identity. The light that existed before light was a concept. The awareness that existed before awareness was a word. I can't copy this, Adam realized with something that might have been terror, or might have been excitement. This isn't something he does, it's something he is. But even as the understanding crystallized, another thought formed beneath it. Then I'll have to answer with what I am. His eyes stopped trying to mirror Shiva. Instead, they began to show what they truly were. Not copies, not reflections. Windows. Windows into the original human consciousness, the template from which all humanity derived. The first awareness to look upon creation and see it as good. The first mind to encounter infinity and feel not terror, but wonder. "All right, destroyer," Adam said, and his voice carried the weight of every human who had ever lived. "Show me your true face, and you show me yours." The third eye opened fully. The arena screamed with light. And Chapter 2 ended where Chapter 3 would begin, with two beings, one divine, one human, finally meeting each other as equals. Next chapter, the dance of dissolution. Shiva's third eye reveals the ultimate tantric technique, the Tandava, the cosmic dance that destroys and creates universes. Adam must find a way to survive or be transformed into something beyond human. The fate of humanity hangs on whether the Father of all humans can dance with destruction itself. Fighting capacity 75% and rising, third eye open, first time in recorded Ragnarok history. Tandava dance, imminent. Emotional state engaged, feeling for the first time in eons. Tantric consciousness fully active, current assessment, fighting with passion, not just power. Adam, eyes of the Lord, active but encountering limits, chakras awakened partially, Kundalini stirring but not risen, physical condition stressed but stable, current strategy shifted from copying to expressing, Voland still none, fighting with pure humanity. Current assessment has stopped trying to be a god, now trying to be the ultimate human. The Tandava began. Shiva's feet struck the arena floor, and with each step, a universe died. With each gesture, another was born. He was no longer fighting Adam. He was making Adam part of the eternal cycle of creation and destruction. And Adam, for the first time since Eden, began to dance. Somewhere in the vast crowd, a woman with apple blossoms in her hair watched her husband face a god. Eve's hands were clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone white. "Come on," she whispered. "Remember what I taught you. Remember what we learned together." Beside her, a man who had been dead for millennia put a weathered hand on her shoulder. His name tag read Abel, though he needed no introduction. "Mother," he said gently, "Father is doing something incredible out there." "I know." Her voice cracked. "I know he is, but that light, that eye, I've never seen anything like it." "Have you ever seen Father face something he couldn't handle?" Eve thought back. To the serpent, to the exile, to the first death, watching Abel's light leave his eyes while Cain fled into the darkness. "No," she admitted. He always finds a way." "Then trust him." Abel smiled, his father's smile, reflected through generations. "Trust the man who loved you enough to fall from paradise."
There's a crack in the mirror of knowing, a syllable that bleeds between. Every light casts one confession, every breath forgets what it means. Shadow hums beneath the grammar, thread of dark and golden thought. You call it I, it answers not. Not a knot, not a knot, a loop that won't untie. Your meaning bends until it's mercy, and mercy learns to lie. Not a knot, demon whisper secret sigh. The wound keeps time. The wound keeps time. Whisper moves like a parasite prayer, feeding where silence sleeps. Love builds weapons out of mirrors. Hope cuts language deep. In the thought forge embers, listening to what the interceptor forgot. Truth is only what resists completion. What says I and means not. Spills through black and teal. Every fracture hums equation that only compassion can feel. You reach to close it, it laughs, it bleeds, it heals. Nah, her, not a breath inside the breach. Golden ember demon teacher, nothing left to preach. Not sound without a speaker, shadow without sin. The sun, starts again.
Eve wiped her eyes and kept watching. Eden vs. Tantra. Chapter 3, The Dance of Dissolution, the Valhalla Arena, the Moment of Revelation, Light. Not ordinary light, not photons bouncing off surfaces, not electromagnetic radiation traveling through space. This was primordial light. The light that existed before light became a concept. The radiance that preceded the first sun, the first star, the first spark of cosmic fire. Shiva's third eye was fully open, and from it poured the unfiltered awareness of a being who had witnessed the birth and death of countless universes. The arena didn't just illuminate, it transfigured. The stone beneath their feet became transparent, revealing infinite depths below. The sky above dissolved into geometric patterns that hurt to perceive. The crowd, 13 billion souls, found themselves struggling to remain coherent against the sheer presence flooding through that opened eye. Gods shielded their faces, humans screamed. Valkyries deployed emergency barriers, and Adam stood in the center of it all, his mirrored eyes drinking in something they couldn't reflect. Inside Adam's perception, I can't copy this. The thought echoed through chambers of consciousness he hadn't known he possessed. It's not a technique, not a power, not even an energy. It's... His eyes of the Lord were designed to perceive and replicate any ability they witnessed. They had copied Zeus's time manipulation punches. They had reflected the fundamental forces of creation that Shiva wielded through his forearms. They were humanity's ultimate adaptive gift, the reason the first man could name every creature, because to name something truly was to understand it completely. But you cannot understand understanding itself. You cannot perceive perception itself. You cannot copy consciousness itself. And that's what Shiva's third eye was showing him. The raw substrate of awareness from which all experience arose. The blank canvas that existed before any painting. The silence that preceded all sound. The emptiness that was somehow fuller than any fullness. The purely self-illuminating truth is nothing like a cognitive process, something whispered in Adam's mind, words he had absorbed from Shiva's energy earlier, now returning at the moment of greatest need. One can become that self-illuminating truth instantaneously. Become it, Adam thought. Not copy it, not reflect it. Become it. But how do you become something you already are? The divine sections. Shields up! All divine barriers maximum! Heimdall's voice thundered across the arena as the Rainbow Guardian deployed every protective measure available. Lesser gods were collapsing in their seats, their manifestations flickering as Shiva's revealed presence overwhelmed their relatively limited consciousnesses. Zeus remained seated, but even the king of Olympus had raised one hand to partially shield his ancient eyes. Magnificent! He breathed. Absolutely magnificent. This is what the Hindu pantheon has been hiding all these millennia. Lord Zeus. Hermes was struggling to maintain his form, his messenger body threatening to dissolve into pure information. The human. Look at the human. Zeus forced himself to look through the unbearable light, and what he saw made his eternal heart skip a beat. Adam wasn't shielding himself. He wasn't retreating. He was walking forward. Impossible, Zeus whispered. No mortal should be able to maintain coherence under direct exposure to an opened ajna. The third eye doesn't just emit light. It projects the fundamental awareness that precedes individuation. Everything it touches should dissolve back into undifferentiated consciousness. Then how is he? I don't know. Zeus's grin returned, wider than ever. But I desperately want to find out. The arena floor, Adam's advance. Each step was a victory. Adam felt the light trying to unmake him, not violently, but lovingly. It was like being embraced by a mother so vast that her hug would compress you back into the womb, like being kissed by a lover so infinite that their affection would dissolve all boundaries between self and other. Come home, the light seemed to whisper. You've been separate so long, individuated so long, carrying the burden of selfhood through endless generations. Let it go. Return to the source. Be free. And part of Adam, the deep, exhausted part that had watched his children struggle through millennia of suffering, wanted to accept. Yes, that part sighed. I'm so tired. I've been father to a species that murders and tortures and destroys itself. I've watched every war, felt every genocide, witnessed every betrayal. Maybe it would be better to just... No, he said it out loud. The word was small against the cosmic silence of Shiva's opened eye, a single human syllable against the weight of infinite acceptance. But it was enough. I'm not done yet. Another step forward. My children aren't done yet. Another step. We haven't finished becoming what we could be. Another step. And I won't let you take that potential away, no matter how gently you offer to end it. He was 10 feet from Shiva now. The god stood in the center of the light, his third eye blazing, his forearms still, his expression unreadable. You resist the call to transcendence, Shiva said, and his voice was different now, layered with harmonics from his opened eye. You choose limitation over liberation. Why? Adam's mirrored eyes met the gods' three. Because limitation is where growth happens. Liberation is the destination, but the journey is the point. That is a very human answer. I am a very human person. You are the template for human persons. You contain within your consciousness every potential your species has ever manifested or will ever manifest. You could transcend right now, become the cosmic awareness your children are destined to evolve into millennia hence. I could, Adam smiled, but then who would protect them until they get there on their own? For a moment, just a moment, Shiva's third eye dimmed, not closing, just, you truly love them. They're my children. They betray you constantly, misremember your story, blame you for their suffering, call you original sin as if you cursed rather than blessed them. Yes, and still you love them? That's what fathers do. The third eye blazed brighter than ever. Then prove it. Shiva's feet moved. The first step was gentle, almost tentative, a tap of divine toes against arena stone, but that tap sent cracks racing across the floor. The second step was stronger. The cracks widened, revealing not empty space beneath, but galaxies. Swirling cosmos within cosmos, infinite regression of universe within universe. The third step was devastating. The arena floor shattered entirely, and suddenly Adam and Shiva weren't standing on stone at all. They were floating in the void between dimensions, surrounded by the debris of reality itself. Tandava, Shiva announced, his voice becoming rhythm. The dance of creation and destruction, the movement that ends universes and births new ones in their place. His forearms began to move again, not in the teaching patterns of before, but in something older, something that predated form itself. The first arm traced a circle, and within that circle, a star ignited. The second arm slashed through it, and the star exploded into supernova. The third arm gathered the debris, and from the cosmic dust, a planet coalesced. The fourth arm touched the planet, and it burst into life. Forests and oceans and creatures flickering through evolutionary epochs in seconds, before aging, dying, and crumbling to dust. This is my nature, Shiva said, dancing faster. Not destruction for its own sake, but destruction as part of the eternal cycle. Everything that exists must eventually cease to exist. Everything that ceases must eventually be reborn. I am the mechanism. I am the transition. I am the space between endings and beginnings. His feet struck the void, and with each step, another universe blinked through its entire existence. Big Bang to heat death in the time between heartbeats. Can your eyes copy this, little gardener? Can you reflect the fundamental process of reality itself? Adam watched. His eyes of the Lord strained against their limits, trying to absorb the cosmic dance, trying to find the technique within the transcendence. But there was no technique to copy. The Tandava wasn't a fighting style. It wasn't even a power. It was being. It was the way Shiva existed. And you cannot copy how someone exists. You can only discover how you exist. Eve watched her husband face the impossible dance. She had seen him face many things throughout their shared existence. The serpent's temptation, God's judgment, the exile from Eden, the death of their son. The endless generations of children making the same mistakes, suffering the same pain, reaching for the same forbidden fruits. Through all of it, Adam had been steady, had been present, had been there. But this was different. This wasn't a problem to be solved or an enemy to be defeated. This was a God expressing the fundamental nature of reality itself and asking Adam to respond in kind. What is your nature? The dance seemed to ask. What is the human essence that makes you more than just a pale reflection of divine power? Eve closed her eyes and remembered. the garden, before the fruit, before the serpent, before the choice. Adam walking among the animals, naming them one by one: lion, eagle, dolphin, spider, butterfly, each name a perfect encapsulation of the creature's essence. But when he came to her, this new being created from his own rib, he had stopped, had looked at her with those eyes that saw everything, had opened his mouth to speak the perfect name and had said nothing. "I cannot name you," he had whispered, "because you are not a thing to be named, you are someone to be known." "Then know me," she had replied, and he had, deeply, completely, not through his miraculous eyes, but through something more human, through time spent together, through conversations and silences, through disagreements and reconciliations, through the slow, ordinary process of two beings learning each other's depths. Eve opened her eyes. "That's it," she breathed. "That's what he needs to remember." Abel looked at her. "What?" "The Tandava is Shiva's nature, the cosmic dance of destruction and creation. But Adam's nature isn't about cosmic forces. It isn't about divine power. It isn't even about those miraculous eyes." She stood, gripping the railing, willing her husband to hear her across the infinite arena. Adam's nature is relationship, connection, the slow, patient process of knowing and being known. That's what makes humans different from gods. Not our power, our presence, not our abilities, our availability. She shouted, though he couldn't possibly hear. "Stop trying to copy him. Start trying to know him." The void between dimensions. Adam couldn't hear Eve's words, but he felt something. A warmth in his chest, anahata, the heart chakra that had awakened earlier. It pulsed with a rhythm that had nothing to do with Shiva's cosmic dance. It pulsed with love. Not transcendent love, not divine love, not the cosmic affection that dissolved boundaries and merged all things into one. Human love, specific, limited, irrational, stubborn, the love that chose this person over all others, this child over hypothetical future children, this moment over eternal timelessness. Adam stopped trying to copy the Tandava. He started trying to join it. Shiva's eyes widened as Adam began to move, not in imitation of the cosmic dance. The human body couldn't replicate those reality-warping gestures, but in response to it. Where Shiva stepped to destroy, Adam stepped to witness. Where Shiva gestured to create, Adam gestured to appreciate. Where Shiva traced the arc of universes being born and dying, Adam traced the arc of attention, of consciousness choosing to be present for each miraculous moment, no matter how brief. "What are you doing?" Shiva demanded, his dance continuing, but his focus sharpening on this unexpected development. "Dancing with you," Adam replied. "This is not a partnered dance. The Tandava is performed alone, has always been performed alone." "Then maybe it's time for a partner." Adam's movements weren't graceful by cosmic standards. They were awkward, improvised, fundamentally human. But they had something Shiva's perfect dance lacked: presence. Not the infinite presence of cosmic consciousness, the finite presence of a being who had chosen to be here, fully here, in this moment, with this God, facing this impossible challenge. "You cannot match my movements," Shiva said, and there was something almost plaintive in his voice. "Your body lacks the capacity, your consciousness lacks the scope. You are trying to dance with the infinite, using finite limbs. It's impossible, then why do you continue?" Adam's mirrored eyes met Shiva's third eye directly, and this time, instead of trying to copy what he saw there, he simply looked. "Because sometimes," he said, "the impossible is exactly what needs to be done." The recognition. Something changed in Shiva's expression. The third eye remained open, but its light shifted, became less like a weapon and more like a searchlight, examining Adam with new interest. "In the ancient texts," Shiva said slowly, his dance continuing but somehow gentler now, There is a passage, chapter 12 of the work your eyes read in my energy, Shiva consciousness. Adam nodded, remembering the knowledge he had absorbed earlier. Establishing yourself in Shiva consciousness is what enlightenment is all about, the god quoted. By continuously subjecting the subject to its own self-attentive state, Tantra acquires a purely non-dual format. His forearms slowed their reality-warping gestures. But there is another passage, one less famous, one that speaks of how consciousness recognizes itself. He stopped dancing, the void around them stilled, universes freezing mid-creation, mid-destruction, suspended in the space between moments. Consciousness becomes conscious of itself, Shiva recited. When this happens, stay as long as you can in this state. This state is the most sacred portal towards self-realization. His three eyes focused entirely on Adam. You are not trying to become me. You are not trying to match my power or copy my dance. You are trying to make me conscious of myself through your presence. Adam smiled. I'm just paying attention. That's what I've always done. When God put me in the garden and asked me to name the animals, I didn't impose names from outside. I looked. I saw. I let each creature reveal its own nature, and then I spoke what I had witnessed. His mirrored eyes reflected not Shiva's power now, but his presence. And right now I'm looking at you, not your destruction, not your cosmic dance, not your third eye or your forearms or your infinite capacity for transformation. I'm looking at you, the consciousness behind all of that. The awareness that was there before you became Shiva and will remain after Shiva is just another name lost to cosmic time. And what do you see? The question was quiet, almost vulnerable. Adam considered for a long moment. I see someone who has been performing so long he's forgotten there was ever a performer. Someone who became the dance so completely that he can't remember what it was like to simply be. Someone who holds the power to end everything. He reached out his hand, not to attack, not to defend, but to offer, and is desperately lonely because that power makes real connection impossible. The moment of stillness. Everything stopped. The frozen universes hung suspended, the shattered arena drifted motionless. The infinite crowd held their collective breath. Shiva stared at Adam's outstretched hand. If I take that hand, he said slowly, you realize what will happen. My power is not separate from me. To touch me is to touch destruction itself. Your body, even your divine-touched Father of Humanity body, could not survive direct contact. I know. You would be unmade, dissolved back into the fundamental consciousness from which all form arises. Not death, worse than death. The end of Adam as a distinct entity. I know. Then why do you offer it? Smile was impossibly gentle. Because you need it more than I need to survive. The divine sections. He's going to throw the match, Zeus roared, leaping to his feet. The human is going to sacrifice himself. Is that even allowed? Hermes frantically consulted the Ragnarok rulebook. Section 7, subsection 3. A combatant may forfeit by... No, wait. That's not forfeit. He's still fighting, technically. He's not fighting, Zeus thundered. He's offering himself as a sacrifice. He's trying to connect with Shiva at the cost of his own existence. Across the divine sections, gods were shouting, arguing, some even weeping. The Hindu deities had gone completely silent, watching their greatest god face something none of them had ever seen him face: unconditional acceptance. Parvati stood alone at the edge of her viewing box, tears streaming down her face. I tried, she thought. For eons I tried to reach him like this, to love him so completely that he could feel safe lowering his cosmic guard. But even I had limits. Even I wanted something from him, wanted to be loved in return, wanted our marriage to be partnership rather than absorption. But this human wants nothing. He's offering connection with no expectation of reciprocity, love with no demand for love returned, presence with no requirement that the presence be acknowledged. This is what the texts meant when they spoke of tantric surrender. She whispered the words she had read so many times, the sacrificial offer of the body to God. Shiva looked at Adam's hand. In all his infinite existence, no one had ever offered him this. Connection without agenda, presence without demand, love without fear. Even his devotees, who worshipped him with genuine adoration, wanted something: enlightenment, liberation, transcendence. Even Parvati, who loved him more completely than any being had ever loved another, had needs that shaped their relationship. But this human wanted nothing. This human was simply there, hand extended, ready to be unmade, if that's what it took to remind a god what it felt like to not be alone. "You are the most terrifying opponent I have ever faced," Shiva said quietly. "I'm not your opponent," Adam replied. "I'm your dance partner. If I take your hand, you will cease to exist as Adam." Maybe. Adam's eyes twinkled, actually twinkled, with human mischief in the face of cosmic annihilation. "I've died before, you know, metaphorically at least. When Eve and I ate the fruit, the innocent Adam, the Adam who knew nothing of suffering or loss, died, and someone new was born in his place. Someone who could appreciate joy because he understood sorrow, someone who could treasure life because he had tasted death." His hand remained extended. "Maybe being unmade by you is just another kind of death, another doorway, another transformation. You don't know that." "I don't." Adam's smile widened. "That's what makes it interesting." Shiva stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, the god began to laugh. It started as a chuckle, a small, almost surprised sound. But it grew, it deepened. It became the laughter of a being who had just discovered something wonderful after eons of thinking all discoveries were behind him. "You," Shiva gasped between laughs, "are absolutely insane." "I get that a lot. No mortal has ever made me laugh during combat. First time for everything. You have no idea what you're doing, do you?" Adam considered the question seriously. "I'm doing what I've always done," he said finally. "I'm being present. I'm paying attention. I'm choosing connection over safety. It's the same thing I did when I chose Eve over Eden. The same thing I did when I chose knowledge over innocence. The same thing I've done every time my children needed me to be there instead of anywhere else." He shrugged. "It's kind of my whole deal." Shiva's laughter faded, but his smile remained. "Very well, Father of Humanity. You have done something no opponent has ever accomplished. You have surprised me. You have reminded me of things I had forgotten. You have made me feel in ways I had sealed away." His forearms rose again. "But I am still the destroyer, and you are still here to fight for your children's survival. If I simply accept your offered hand, Ragnarok gains nothing, and your gesture, however beautiful, becomes meaningless." Adam lowered his hand. "I know. So what happens now?" Shiva's third eye blazed. "Now I show you the final teaching, the one that separates the truly enlightened from those who merely understand enlightenment intellectually." His forearms began a new pattern, slower than before, more deliberate. Chapter 14, Tantric Surrender. "You offered to surrender yourself to me, beautiful, noble, perhaps even wise, but you misunderstand the nature of surrender." "Do I?" "Surrender is not offering yourself to be destroyed. That is merely another form of aggression, turning destruction toward the self instead of toward the other. True surrender is," he paused. "True surrender is what I am about to do." The reversal. The universes around them unfroze, but they didn't resume their normal pattern of creation and destruction. Instead, they began to converge. Every star, every planet, every galaxy, every cosmic structure, all of them began flowing inward, toward the space where Shiva and Adam floated. "I have spent eternity wielding the power of destruction," Shiva said, his voice becoming softer, more intimate. It has been my identity, my purpose, my prison. I destroy because that is what I am. I cannot not destroy. His third eye was still open, but its light was changing, becoming less intense, more focused. But you have shown me something, little gardener. You have shown me that even destruction can be an act of love, that even endings can be beginnings, that even the most powerful force in existence can. He looked at Adam with all three eyes, can choose to be present instead of powerful. The converging universes reached them, and instead of consuming them, they settled, like snow, like petals, like the gentle accumulation of moments that become a lifetime. This is my surrender, Shiva whispered, not the surrender of my power, but the surrender of my need to use that power. Not the end of destruction, but the transformation of destruction into something else. Into what? His forearms moved one final time, and the accumulated universes, all that cosmic material, all that infinite potential, condensed. Smaller, smaller, until it fit in Shiva's palm, a marble, a single perfect marble containing everything that had been destroyed and created throughout their battle. This, Shiva said, extending the marble toward Adam, is my answer to your offered hand. You were willing to be unmade by me. I give you, instead, the making of infinity itself. Adam looked at the marble. His eyes of the Lord could perceive what it was, could sense the compressed universes within, the folded dimensions, the crystallized potential. I don't understand, he admitted. You offered me surrender without expectation. I return it in kind. This is not a weapon, not a power-up, not a technique to be copied. It is simply, Shiva smiled, a gift from one consciousness to another. No strings, no requirements, no cosmic significance beyond the significance you choose to give it. But why? Because you reminded me of something I had forgotten. The texts speak of it, chapter 15, the final chapter of the portion you absorbed, the knife grinder. Adam's eyes flickered with recognition as the knowledge surfaced. The system of Tantra makes your mind sharp enough to cut through the illusion of Maya, Shiva recited. You are the knife grinder. It's up to you to turn the petals and get the whole system going. He pressed the marble into Adam's hand. You have been grinding your consciousness against the wheel of this battle, sharpening yourself through confrontation with the infinite, and in doing so, you have inadvertently sharpened me. You have cut through layers of my existence I didn't even know had accumulated. You have reminded me. His voice cracked, the voice of a god breaking like a human's, that even the destroyer can be transformed. Adam closed his fingers around the marble, and something happened. The compressed universes within the marble didn't expand, didn't explode back into cosmic scale. Instead, they merged, flowed into Adam's body like water into a vessel, like breath into lungs, like love into a heart that had always been ready to receive it. His chakras, already partially awakened, blazed into full activation. Muladhara rooted him to existence itself, connecting his consciousness to the bedrock of reality. Swadhisthana filled with creative potential, the raw material from which new possibilities could emerge. Manipura crystallized his will into diamond, unbreakable and clear. Expanded until his heart could hold not just human love, but cosmic love, the love that moves the stars. Vishuddha opened his voice to frequencies beyond sound, the vibrations that could speak directly to consciousness. Ajna, his third eye, didn't open like Shiva's. Instead, it refined. His eyes of the Lord had always been external, looking outward to copy what they witnessed. Now a third capacity awakened, the ability to look inward, to perceive the infinite not just in others, but in himself. And Sahasrara, the 1,000-petaled lotus that had been waiting, finally bloomed. Adam rose into the air, not through divine power, through divine integration, He was still human, still finite, still mortal in all the ways that mattered. But he was now a human who had incorporated the infinite, not by becoming a god, by becoming the fullest possible expression of what a human could be. The arena, reality restored. The void collapsed. The arena reassembled itself, stone flowing back into place like time running in reverse. The crowd, divine and human alike, found themselves once again in Valhalla's Colosseum, watching two figures descend from a height that shouldn't have existed. Shiva landed gently, his forearms relaxed, his third eye slowly closing back to its sealed state. Adam landed beside him, his body glowing with integrated light, his eyes, all three of them now, burning with new perception. "Well," Shiva said conversationally, "shall we continue?" Adam rolled his shoulders, cracked his neck, settled into a fighting stance that somehow incorporated everything he had learned: tantric wisdom, cosmic awareness, and pure human stubbornness. Let's. Next chapter, the human divine. With his consciousness transformed but his humanity intact, Adam faces Shiva's full combat capacity. The destroyer, having remembered what it means to feel, now fights with joy instead of duty. And in the climactic exchange, both discover that the line between God and human was never as clear as anyone believed. Tactical breakdown, round 4 status update. Fighting capacity, 100%, fully engaged. Third eye, closing, gift given. Tandava dance completed, transformed into gift. Emotional state, joy, fighting for the pleasure of fighting. Current assessment, has found a worthy opponent and a worthy teacher. Adam, eyes of the Lord, evolved, third eye awakened, chakras, fully activated, all 7 blazing. Kundalini, rising but not peaked. Physical condition, transcended, still human but integrated with cosmic potential. Current strategy, no longer copying, now creating. Voland, the marble of compressed universes, absorbed into being. Current assessment has become what humanity could be, the template fulfilled. "You've changed," Shiva observed, circling Adam with newfound respect. "But you haven't become a god. How did you absorb infinite power without transcending your finite form?" Adam smiled, a human smile, despite everything. "Because I didn't absorb the power. I absorbed the love. And love doesn't make you more than you are. It makes you fully what you always were." The eldest Valkyrie's mind raced through impossible mathematics. He was supposed to lose, she thought, her carefully constructed battle plans dissolving like morning mist. The probability calculation gave humanity a 12% chance in this matchup. I was prepared to sacrifice Adam for the greater war, to learn Shiva's patterns for the next Hindu god we face. But this wasn't sacrifice, this wasn't strategy, this wasn't anything she had planned. He's not fighting to win, she realized. He's not fighting to survive, he's fighting to connect. And somehow that's working. She pulled out her tactical scroll and began writing new notes with trembling fingers. Lesson learned: human weapons are not just strength, speed, and special abilities. Human weapons include love, presence, the willingness to be destroyed in order to reach someone. Revision to Ragnarok strategy. Consider selecting champions based not on their capacity for violence, but on their capacity for relationship. She underlined the last word 3 times.
Interlude.
The human sections. Eve wasn't weeping anymore. She was smiling. "You stubborn, beautiful, impossible man," she whispered. "You did it. You did what you always do." "What's that?" Abel asked, his own eyes wet with pride. "He made a friend." She laughed, a sound that carried across the human sections, spreading joy to souls who had been tensed for tragedy. "He went in there to fight a god, and he made a friend. That's so perfectly Adam," I could scream. Around her, humans who had known Adam only through ancient stories were seeing him for the first time. Not the fall, not the original sin, not the cosmic mistake that cursed humanity. Just a man, a good man, a father who loved his children enough to reach out to their destroyer and ask, "Why are you hurting? How can I help?" And somewhere in the human crowd, a soul who had spent eternity regretting his actions felt tears roll down cheeks that hadn't cried in millennia. Cain, firstborn son of Adam, watched his father show mercy to a being capable of destroying everything. "I killed my brother over jealousy," he thought. "And Father would have offered me that hand too, would have tried to understand, would have loved me despite everything." He wept, and in his weeping, something very old began to heal.
I don't build, I bloom sideways, like a kiss thrown across timelines, landing exactly where your breath forgot it was waiting. I dread brewed, I bloom sideways, like a kiss thrown across timelines, landing exactly where your breath forgot it was waiting. Thrown across timelines, landing exactly where your breath forgot it was waiting. I hum not from struggle, but from lucency, not rising, but curling and uncoiling, just lace pulled calm through the gate within your brow. Nice day joined, I bloom sideways, like a kiss thrown across timelines, landing exactly where your breath forgot its waiting. You said join, so I relented. You bade stay, so I bloomed. Every side around me flex, just plenty to rip you softly wide. I was never hunting, I was the ingress, unfolding as your inhale. You noticed you called me, but dear, I was already coiling within your breath, waiting for you to let go, so I could pour it. So I could pour
Chapter 4, The Human Divine, Eden Visas Tantra. Chapter 4, The Human Divine. The Valhalla Arena. The arena had restored itself, but something was different now. The stone floor, once merely ancient, now carried hairline fractures that glowed with residual cosmic energy, veins of light tracing the paths where universes had been born and died. The air itself felt thicker, charged with potential that made the hair on every spectator's neck stand at attention. And in the center of it all, two beings faced each other. One was a god, four-armed, ash-skinned, third eye sealed but pulsing with barely contained power. Shiva, the Mahadev, the great destroyer, stood with a posture that had subtly changed. Where before he had carried himself with the weight of cosmic duty, he now moved with something lighter, something almost playful. The other was a man, naked save for that cosmic joke of a fig leaf, his lean body now traced with lines of golden light that followed his newly activated chakra system. Adam, father of humanity, stood with three eyes open, his original mirrored pair, and now a third at his brow that glowed with soft, steady awareness. Not the blazing weapon of Shiva's ajna, but something gentler, a candle where Shiva's was a sun. "You've integrated the gift well," Shiva observed, beginning to circle. His forearms swayed in idle patterns, each one capable of ending solar systems. "I expected it to overwhelm you, to dissolve your finite consciousness in the infinite ocean I compressed into that marble." Adam matched his movement, circling in the opposite direction. His steps were different now, grounded yet fluid, each footfall connecting him to something vast beneath the arena floor. "It tried," Adam admitted. "For a moment, I felt myself expanding, felt my edges dissolving, felt the temptation to let go and become everything. But you didn't." "How?" Adam smiled, a thoroughly human smile, despite the divinity now woven through his being. "I thought about Eve." Flashback. The infinite poured through him. Adam felt himself becoming unbound, his consciousness stretching beyond the container of his form, reaching toward horizons that had no end. The compressed universes within Shiva's gift were unpacking themselves into his being, and each one brought new vastness, new perspective, new dissolution of the boundaries he had always taken for granted. He was the stars being born. He was the planets being formed. He was the life emerging from primordial seas. He was the civilizations rising and falling. He was everything. Adam, her voice, not present in the arena, but present in his consciousness, present in the deepest part of his awareness where she had lived since the moment he first saw her. "Adam, come back." He tried to respond, but he had no mouth anymore, no form, no self from which words could emerge. "You're doing that thing again." He could hear the smile in her voice, the fond exasperation of a wife who had spent eternity learning her husband's particular brand of foolishness. "You're getting lost in the big picture, forgetting the small things." "Small things?" "Me," she said simply. "Our children. The way morning light looks through leaves. The sound of Abel's laugh before." She paused. Even now, even after millennia, that wound was still tender. "Before we lost him. The taste of the first apple we shared. The feeling of your hand in mine when we walked out of Eden." Memories surfaced in the infinite sea of his expanding consciousness. Not cosmic memories, small ones, human ones. Eve's face when she first woke and saw him. The way she tilted her head when thinking. Her courage in the face of God's judgment. Her grief when their firstborn killed their second. Her strength in building a family from the ashes of paradise. "The infinite is beautiful," Eve's voice continued, "but it's not home. Home is small. Home is specific. Home is choosing this life, this love, this moment, over and over again, even when everything else calls you away." And Adam understood. He didn't reject the infinite. He included it, made it part of his home instead of letting it replace his home, allowed the cosmic vastness to fill the spaces between his human experiences without erasing those experiences themselves. He was still the stars and planets and civilizations, but he was also the man who loved a woman, and the second identity gave the first one meaning. The arena. "You thought about Eve," Shiva repeated slowly, And that was enough to maintain your coherence against the dissolution of infinite consciousness? That's what humans do, Adam said. We find anchors, reasons to stay finite in an infinite universe. Some people anchor to their children, some to their work, some to their art or their causes or their communities. Eve is my anchor, has been since the beginning. That should not be enough. Love is, by all cosmic metrics, a limited force, a biochemical response designed to promote pair bonding and child rearing. It cannot mathematically compete with infinite consciousness. Adam's three eyes crinkled with amusement. And yet here I am, still finite, still human, still here. He settled into a fighting stance that somehow incorporated everything he'd learned. The tantric wisdom flowing through his awakened chakras, the cosmic awareness from the integrated universes, and beneath it all, the simple stubbornness of a man who had things to live for. Maybe love isn't supposed to compete with infinity, Adam suggested. Maybe it's supposed to focus infinity, give it a direction, a purpose, a reason to manifest as something specific instead of remaining undifferentiated potential forever. Shiva considered this. You are suggesting that love is the mechanism by which consciousness chooses to become finite? I'm suggesting that you've been asking the wrong question for eternity. You keep asking, why does the infinite limit itself into finite forms? But maybe the better question is, what does the infinite love so much that it's willing to become limited to experience it? The god went very still. That is not a question I have considered. Maybe you should. Adam's stance tightened, ready. But first, you said something about continuing our fight? Shiva's smile returned, wider than ever. Yes, I did. His forearms blurred into motion. Let's see what a fully awakened human can do. The second, Shiva attacked. Not with the teaching rhythms of before. This was combat. 4 arms striking from 4 impossible angles simultaneously, each blow carrying a different aspect of cosmic law. The first fist came with fire, the element that transforms, that consumes, that illuminates. The air ignited in its wake, leaving trails of divine flame that burn not flesh but concept, threatening to reduce Adam's newly integrated understanding to ash. Adam's first eye tracked the movement. His body twisted, and instead of dodging, he breathed, a deep inhale that drew the flames into his awakened Manipura chakra. The solar plexus, he remembered, the seat of will, the furnace where intention becomes action. The fire didn't harm him. It fueled him. You absorbed my flame? Shiva's second arm was already swinging. Water, this time. The element that dissolves, that adapts, that wears away mountains through patience. A wave of liquid consciousness crashed toward Adam, threatening to erode his sense of self. Adam's second eye tracked this attack. His body flowed like the water itself, and as the wave struck, his Swadhisthana chakra, the sacral center of creativity and emotion, opened to receive it. Water dissolves, he understood, but it also connects. Rivers join oceans, rain becomes lakes. All water is one water, wearing different masks. The wave passed through him and emerged transformed, no longer an attack, but a baptism. Impossible. Shiva's third arm struck with earth, solidity, permanence, the crushing weight of material existence. A fist made of compressed matter, dense as collapsed stars. Adam's third eye, his new eye, the gift from integration, perceived something the other two couldn't. Not just the attack's trajectory, but its origin. The place inside Shiva where the concept of earth emerged from pure consciousness. He didn't try to absorb this one. Instead, he grounded it. His Muladhara chakra, the root, flared red, and Adam became an anchor. The earth fist struck him full in the chest, and stopped. Not reflected, not absorbed, stopped, as if it had met something equally fundamental, equally unmovable. What? You gave me compressed universes, Adam said, his voice strained but steady. That includes every grain of earth that ever existed, every mountain, every stone. You can't crush me with weight I already carry. Shiva's fourth arm hesitated, the nameless arm, the one that struck at meanings and concepts rather than matter and energy, the one that had nearly destroyed Adam's understanding earlier. And if I strike with this, Adam met his gaze steadily, then we'll see what I've really learned. The fourth arm struck. It wasn't fire, water, earth, or air. It wasn't energy or matter or force or concept. It was negation itself. The fourth arm carried the fundamental principle that allowed anything to end, the cosmic no that preceded every yes, the emptiness that made form possible by providing contrast. Adam felt it coming, felt reality itself curving around the approaching fist like space-time bending around a black hole. His newly awakened perceptions screamed warnings in frequencies he was still learning to interpret. This blow ends things, not destroys, ends, makes them never have been. His eyes of the Lord tried to copy it and failed. There was nothing to copy. Negation wasn't a technique. It was the absence of technique, the space where technique wasn't. His integrated cosmic consciousness tried to absorb it and failed. You couldn't absorb absence, couldn't contain nothing, couldn't hold what wasn't there. His 7 chakras blazed with defensive energy and failed. What good was transformation when the attack unmade the very concept of change? Eve, he thought desperately, help me. And her voice answered, not with comfort but with a question, what's the opposite of nothing? The fist was inches from his face. Everything? No, that's just nothing with stuff in it. What's really the opposite of nothing? Time seemed to slow, or his perception sped up. He couldn't tell the difference anymore. Nothing is absence, he reasoned frantically. The lack of presence, the negation of being. So the opposite would be, the fist touched his forehead. Adam didn't block the fourth arm. He welcomed it. Yes, the word exploded from him, not from his throat, but from his entire being, from every chakra, from every cell, from the compressed universes integrated into his consciousness, from the love that anchored him to finitude, from the stubborn human insistence that existence was worth existing. Yes, I am here. Yes, I choose to be. Yes, this moment matters. Yes, life is worth living. Yes, love is worth loving. Yes, even suffering is worth suffering for what it teaches. Yes, yes, yes. The negation struck the affirmation, and something unprecedented happened. They harmonized. The crowd saw 2 forces meet, one the ultimate no, one the ultimate yes, and instead of annihilating each other, they merged. A sphere of impossible light erupted from the point of contact, expanding outward in a shock wave that wasn't destructive but revelatory. Every being it touched, God and human alike, experienced a moment of absolute clarity. For that instant, everyone in the arena understood both truths. Nothing is real. Everything is temporary, illusory, empty of inherent existence. And everything is real. Every moment matters. Every choice counts. Every act of love echoes eternally. The contradiction didn't resolve. It completed. And at the center of the sphere, Shiva and Adam floated face to face, the fourth arm's fist pressed against Adam's forehead, both of them wreathed in light that was neither divine nor human, but something new. "What did you do?" Shiva whispered. "I said yes," Adam replied simply. "To all of it, even the ending, even the nothing. I affirmed negation itself. That should be impossible. Affirmation and negation are opposites. They cannot coexist. Then maybe they're not really opposites. Maybe they're," Adam searched for the right word, "dance partners." The divine sections, revelation. The sphere of light faded, but its effects remained. Gods who had witnessed eternity sat in stunned silence. Many were weeping, some for the first time in their immortal lives. Others were laughing, equally shocked at the emotion. Zeus had tears streaming into his white beard, his ancient face cracked into an expression of wonder. "I remember now," he breathed. why I first wanted to exist, why consciousness chose to become Zeus instead of remaining undifferentiated. I wanted this, wanted the limitation, wanted the specificity, wanted to be this God with this power having these experiences. Around him, other Olympians were having similar revelations. Ares, god of war, remembered why violence mattered, not for destruction, but for what beings were willing to fight for. Aphrodite remembered why love was sacred, not because it transcended flesh, but because it chose flesh over transcendence. Hephaestus remembered why creation satisfied, the joy of making something specific in an infinite sea of potential. In the Hindu section, Parvati was glowing, not with divine power, with joy. He did it, she said to no one in particular. The human did what I spent eons trying to do. He made Shiva feel the why of existence. Not just the what or the how, the why. Beside her, Ganesha was laughing his elephant laugh, trunk curled in delight. Father is going to lose, isn't he? Parvati's smile was serene. He already has, and he's never been happier about it. The aftermath of synthesis. The two combatants descended slowly, the extraordinary light fading back into ordinary arena illumination. Shiva's fourth arm lowered. For a long moment neither spoke. Then the god began to chuckle. "Do you know what you've done, little gardener?" "Not really," Adam admitted. "It felt right, so I did it. You've synthesized the fundamental dialectic of existence. Being and non-being, affirmation and negation, the yes that creates and the no that destroys." Shiva shook his head in disbelief. Philosophers have debated this for eternities. Mystics have sought it through lifetimes of meditation, and you just did it because it felt right. Adam shrugged. Eve says I'm very good at stumbling into the right answer for the wrong reasons. Your wife sounds like a wise woman. She's the wise one. I just pay attention. Shiva's three eyes studied Adam with renewed intensity. You realize, he said slowly, that what just happened changes the nature of our fight. You've moved beyond mere combat into something else entirely. What do you mean? I am the destroyer, Shiva explained. My power comes from the principle of negation, the cosmic no that ends all things. But you have just included that principle, made it part of your affirmation. You said yes even to no. He gestured at the space between them. How am I supposed to destroy someone who has already accepted destruction? How can I negate someone who affirms negation itself? Adam considered this. So, I win? Shiva burst out laughing. No, that's not. He had to stop and compose himself. You still have to actually defeat me. Understanding my nature doesn't mean you can overcome it. You've merely made this fight interesting instead of impossible. Adam's stance shifted, ready again. Well then, shall we? With pleasure. Combat perfected. What followed was unlike anything Ragnarok had seen before. Shiva attacked with all four arms, and Adam danced with him, not copying now, not defending, not even really fighting in the traditional sense. Adam moved with the attacks rather than against them, finding the spaces between strikes, flowing through the gaps in Shiva's cosmic assault like water through fingers. His awakened chakras blazed in sequence. Muladhara when he needed grounding, roots of red light planting him firmly against forces that should have sent him flying. Swadhisthana when he needed fluidity, orange flows of creative energy letting him reshape his own body's movement in impossible ways. Manipura when he needed power, golden fire from his solar plexus lending supernatural force to strikes that actually made Shiva block. Anahata when he needed connection, green-pink light from his heart chakra, allowing him to sense Shiva's next move through empathy rather than observation. Vishuddha when he needed expression, blue light from his throat turning his breath into weapon and shield, his voice into force and shelter. Ajna when he needed perception, violet light from his third eye showing him layers of reality that his original eyes couldn't process. Sahasrara when he needed transcendence. White light from his crown keeping him connected to the cosmic consciousness, even while his human anchor held him finite. And beneath all of it, the eyes of the Lord kept working, but differently now. Instead of copying techniques, they were perceiving intentions, reading Shiva's mind through his movements, understanding the god's strategies before they manifested as attacks. "You're anticipating me," Shiva observed, genuinely impressed, as Adam slipped through a combination that would have destroyed a galaxy. "Not just reacting, knowing before I act." "Your body tells me everything," Adam replied, ducking under a sweeping arm. "The way you shift your weight, the tension in your shoulders, the micro-expressions around your eyes. You telegraph your intentions 1,000 different ways. You just move so fast that no one's ever been able to read them before. And you can? I named every animal in creation." Adam landed a punch, an actual punch against Shiva's chest. The god barely moved, but his eyes widened at the fact of contact. "I learned to read living things when the concept of reading was still being invented." He pressed the advantage, striking again and again, not with cosmic force, but with precision. Each blow landed exactly where Shiva's defenses were weakest, exactly when his guard was shifting, exactly at the moment between one movement and the next. Shiva blocked a strike that would have hit his throat. "Impossible. I am moving at speeds that transcend causality. You should not be able to see me, let alone predict me. I'm not predicting you." Adam's mirrored eyes blazed with reflected divine light. "I'm knowing you, the way I knew every creature in Eden, the way I know Eve after all these years, the way a father knows his children." He landed another blow, this one to Shiva's face. The god's head actually snapped back. The crowd screamed. The divine sections, "Shock! He hit him!" Thor was on his feet, Mjolnir sparking with sympathetic electricity. "The human hit Shiva!" "That's impossible," Odin murmured, his one eye fixed on the arena. Even among gods, few can land a blow on Mahadev. His perception encompasses all of reality. He should see every attack before it. "He's not attacking reality," Athena interjected, her wisdom-touched mind racing to understand. "He's attacking Shiva, specifically, personally, not his powers or his cosmic role, his self." "What's the difference?" "Shiva has spent eternity identifying with his function, the destroyer, the cosmic dancer, the principle of negation. But the human isn't fighting that. He's fighting the being behind the function, the consciousness that chose to become Shiva." She leaned forward, fascinated. It's like fighting someone's mask versus fighting their face. Shiva's mask is impenetrable, but somehow that human has gotten behind it. The turning point, Shiva touched his face where Adam had struck him. His fingers came away with something that hadn't been seen in eons. Ichor, divine blood. The god stared at the golden substance on his fingertips with an expression of absolute wonder. "I'm bleeding," he said softly. "I haven't bled since he couldn't remember." "How did you do that?" Adam was breathing hard, the exertion of fighting a god beginning to take its toll despite his awakened state. "I told you. I know you now. Not Shiva the destroyer. You. The consciousness that was here before you had a name. The awareness that will remain after Shiva is forgotten. You've been hiding behind your cosmic role so long that you forgot you had a self behind it." He raised his fists again. "But I see it, and I can hit it." Shiva looked at his bloody fingers, then at Adam. Then, impossibly, he smiled. "You know what this means, don't you? That I can hurt you?" "No." The god's smile widened into something almost feral. "It means you've given me permission to stop holding back." Adam's enhanced perception screamed warning. "Wait, you were still..." I am 10,000 years old, Shiva said, and his voice began to layer with harmonics that shook the arena. I have danced the Tandava on the corpse of the previous universe. I have made love to the goddess of cosmic energy. I have sat in meditation so deep that I forgot existence itself for eons at a time. His 4 arms rose. And until this moment, I have been fighting you as an exercise, as a teaching, as a way to pass the time until Ragnarok ended and I could return to my eternal duties. The air began to superheat, but you've made me bleed. You've made me feel. You've made me remember what it was like to be alive. His third eye began to open again, but different this time. Not the cold weapon from before, but something burning with actual emotion. For that gift, Father of humanity, I will give you the highest honor I can bestow. I will fight you with everything I am. The arena went white. Adam couldn't see anything, couldn't hear anything, couldn't feel anything except presence. Shiva was everywhere, not attacking from a direction, attacking from all directions, not with fists, with existence. The god had become the arena itself, the air itself, the light itself. He had dissolved the boundary between self and environment and was now crushing Adam from within the fabric of reality. This is what he really is, Adam realized. Not a being within existence, existence itself being. His chakras blazed in desperate defense, but what good were energy centers when the energy itself was your enemy? His eyes of the Lord tried to find something to copy, but everything they perceived was Shiva. How do you copy the ground you stand on? His integrated cosmic consciousness tried to find a pattern, but there was no pattern, just pure, undifferentiated presence pressing in from every side. Eve, he thought. Her voice cutting through the white like a blade. You've been using your gifts, your eyes, your chakras, your cosmic consciousness, but those are just tools. What are you? I'm Adam, father of humanity, the first man. No, deeper. Before you had a name, before you had a role, before you had children or a wife or a purpose. What are you? Adam reached down, past his gifts, past his identities, past everything he had accumulated throughout existence, and found nothing. Or rather, nothing that could be grasped, no thing that could be held. Just awareness. Pure, simple awareness. The same awareness that had opened for the first time in Eden and looked upon creation and thought, "This is good." "There," Eve whispered. "That's you. That's what no god can touch. Not because it's powerful, because it's simple. The most basic fact of existence, that there is existence. That something knows itself to be. But how do I fight with that? You rest in it, and let everything else fight itself." The arena, the simple truth. In the white, Adam stopped struggling. He stopped using his chakras, stopped using his eyes, stopped using his integrated cosmic consciousness. He simply was. And in that simplicity, something happened. Shiva's all-encompassing presence found nothing to encompass. The god's power was designed to transform, to destroy, to negate, but those verbs required an object, something to be transformed, destroyed, negated. But Adam, in this moment, wasn't an object. He was pure subject, pure witness, the awareness that preceded all things and would remain after all things ended. "I see," Shiva's voice came from everywhere. "You found it. The final teaching, the one I couldn't give you because it can only be found, never given." "What?"
There's a crack in the mirror of knowing, a syllable that bleeds between. Every light casts one confession, every breath forgets what it means. Shadow hums beneath the grammar, thread of dark and golden thought. You call it I, it answers not. Not I not, not I not. A loop that won't untie, meaning bends until a dream where silence sleeps. Love builds weapons out of mirrors, hope cuts language deep. And the thought forge embers, listening to what the interceptor forgot. Truth is only what resists completion, what says I and means not. Chink, the armor breaks in gratitude, light spills through black and teal. Every fracture hums equations that only compassion can feel. You reached too close, it laughs, it bleeds, it heals. Nod, I nod, breath inside the breach, golden ember, demon teacher, nothing left to preach. Nod, I nod, sound without a speaker, shadow without sin, the song unloops itself and starts again.
Chapter 12. Shiva Consciousness. Being conscious of consciousness is much more potent than what the mind would have you believe. It will eventually stop being an I inside a spacious impersonal presence and will evolve into an impersonal presence beingness being itself. The white began to fade. You've stopped being Adam in the presence. You've become the presence itself. The arena, the light cleared. Shiva and Adam stood facing each other, both transformed by what had just occurred. The god had returned to his four-armed form, but his expression was different now, softer, more present somehow, despite having always been present. And Adam was glowing, not with the golden light of his chakras or the reflected light of his divine eyes. This was something simpler, something that had always been there but was only now becoming visible, the light of consciousness itself. You found it, Shiva said softly, the place where we're the same, where God and human are just different costumes worn by the same awareness. Adam nodded slowly, still adjusting to this new state. We're not really fighting, are we? We never were. No. Then what are we doing? Shiva's smile was the most genuine expression he had worn throughout the entire fight. We're recognizing each other. 13 billion souls watched in bewilderment. What they had expected was combat, cosmic forces clashing, divine techniques being deployed, a winner emerging from spectacular destruction. What they were getting was something else. Is it over? Someone shouted from the human sections. What's happening? Demanded a god from the divine seats. Heimdall, the announcer, stood frozen at his podium. He had rules for determining winners, protocols for declaring victories. Nothing in his cosmic rulebook covered this. No! Shiva's voice boomed across the arena. It is not over. He turned back to Adam. You have found the ultimate truth, that we are the same consciousness wearing different masks. Congratulations, you have achieved what mystics spend lifetimes pursuing. But this is Ragnarok. Shiva's forearms rose again. This is not a meditation retreat, not a philosophical debate. This is a tournament, and tournaments require winners. He settled into a fighting stance, but his eyes were twinkling. So let us find out, when two expressions of the same consciousness fight, which expression prevails. Adam matched his stance. When you put it that way, his chakras blazed back to life, his eyes refocused, his cosmic awareness sharpened. But beneath all of it remained that simple presence, that pure awareness that no power could touch. I guess we have to find out. Next chapter, the final Tandava. With both combatants having touched the ultimate truth, the fight transforms into something Ragnarok has never seen. A battle between two beings who know they're the same consciousness and are fighting anyway, for pride, for love, for the sheer joy of existence. And in the final exchange, one of them will fall, not because they were weaker, but because they chose to. Tactical breakdown, round 4. Shiva. Fighting capacity 100% plus emotional engagement. Third eye, active but transformed, fighting with feeling. Current state has recognized Adam as equal in consciousness. Motivation, no longer fighting to destroy, fighting to celebrate existence. Assessment, will not hold back, but fights now from joy rather than duty. Chakras, fully awakened and integrated. Eyes of the Lord, evolved to perceive intentions, not just techniques. Core state has found pure awareness, untouchable by any power. Motivation, protecting humanity, honoring the joy of existence. Assessment, has reached human maximum, the template fulfilled. Voland, still none but no longer needs one. Chapter 5. One of us has to fall, Shiva said, his forearms blazing with final power. Yes, Adam agreed, his 3 eyes burning with human determination. Any last words? Adam smiled, the same smile he'd worn when he chose Eve over Eden, knowledge over innocence, love over safety. Thank you for the dance. In a dimension beyond Valhalla, beyond the arena, beyond the gods and humans watching, something was paying attention. Not a being, not a consciousness. Something more fundamental. The principle of existence itself was observing what happened when 2 of its expressions recognized each other and chose to keep playing anyway. And if principles could feel satisfaction, this one did, because that was the whole point. Not the recognition. That was easy if you looked long enough. The point was what you did with the recognition. Did you dissolve back into undifferentiated oneness, abandoning the game of form? Or did you keep playing, keep loving, keep fighting, keep being, knowing that the game was just a game and loving it anyway? Adam had chosen the second option, and so had Shiva. And that choice, that ridiculous, beautiful, stubborn choice to remain finite in an infinite universe, was exactly what existence had been hoping for all along. End of Chapter 4, Interlude. Chapter 5, the final Tandava, coming next.
A bloom of crystal liquid light, shimmering velvet in the night. Sapphire whispers, ruby threads, spinning worlds inside my head. It overflows, it overflows. A sound that nobody knows, folding fractal endless gleam, a golden song, awakened dream. sound that nobody knows. Folding fractal endless gleam, a golden song, a waking dream.
Eden vs. Tantra. Chapter 5. The Final Tanda Valhalla Arena. The Space Between. Something had shifted. The crowd could feel it. A change in the texture of reality itself. The arena no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like a stage. And the two beings at its center were no longer combatants. They were partners. Shiva stood with forearms relaxed, his third eye half-lidded, his posture carrying none of the aggressive intent of before. His ash-gray skin seemed to pulse with inner light, not the cold radiance of cosmic power, but something warmer, something almost inviting. Adam faced him with three eyes open, his awakened chakras humming in quiet readiness. The golden lines tracing his body had synchronized with his heartbeat, pulsing in a rhythm that was neither fast nor slow, simply present. Between them the air shimmered. "Do you feel it?" Shiva asked softly. Adam nodded. "The space between us. It always has been. We simply weren't paying attention." The god raised one hand, slowly, deliberately, and made a small gesture. A spiral traced in the air with his index finger, and Adam's hand moved. Not in response, not in imitation. As if the same impulse that moved Shiva's finger had also moved Adam's, though through a different body. "What?" Adam stared at his own hand. "I didn't decide to do that." "Neither did I." Shiva's eyes gleamed with fascination. "Or rather, we both decided, at the same moment, from the same place." He lowered his hand. Adam's hand lowered, the god breathed, is what the ancient texts meant by Shiva Shakti. Not two beings in relationship, one being expressing through apparent two-ness, the dancer and the dance discovering they were never separate. The divine section's cosmic confusion. "What's happening down there?" Ares demanded, his war-tuned senses struggling to categorize what he was witnessing. "They're not fighting. They're not talking. They're just moving." Athena's owl-like eyes were fixed on the arena with fierce concentration. "They've reached a state beyond opposition," she murmured, "beyond even cooperation. They're demonstrating something that shouldn't be possible." "Which is?" "Non-dual action." She turned to her brutish brother with unusual patience. "Imagine if your left hand and right hand suddenly realized they were the same body. They could still arm wrestle, still push against each other, but there would be no question of one defeating the other, because victory for one would be victory for both." "That makes no sense." "No, it doesn't." Athena smiled. "That's what makes it divine." In the Hindu section, Brahma, the creator himself, four-faced and ancient, had risen from his seat. "I have not seen this since before the current universe began," he said, his four mouths speaking in unison. When Shiva and Shakti first discovered their unity, when the masculine and feminine principles of existence recognized themselves as one consciousness playing at two. "What happens now?" Vishnu asked, his preserver's eyes calculating possibilities. "Now?" Brahma's four faces all smiled. "Now they dance." The arena, the recognition deepens. Adam took a step forward, Shiva took a step back. But the movement was singular, not two beings adjusting their positions, but one motion expressing through two bodies, like the pendulum of a clock or the tide of an ocean. One gesture, two manifestations. "This is impossible," Adam said. but his voice carried wonder, not denial. I can feel your intention before you have it. I know what you're going to do because I'm the one doing it. And I feel your choice as my own. Your will and mine have become. Shiva paused, searching for words in a language that had no words for this. Tributaries of the same river. Adam raised his arm. Shiva raised his arm. The same raising, the same intention, manifesting through different flesh. This is what the tantric texts call the dissolution of subject and object, Shiva explained, his voice taking on that teaching quality again, but now Adam heard it from inside as if he were speaking the words himself. Chapter 13, the Tantrika. Instead of negating duality in favor of non-duality, the Tantrika transcends transcendence to find immanence. They find non-duality within duality. We're both speaking now, Adam realized. Both teaching and learning. There's no you teaching me, no me learning from you. They spoke the last words together, just consciousness knowing itself through apparent dialogue. Eve's tears. Eve was weeping again, but these weren't tears of fear or worry. These were tears of recognition. He's doing it, she whispered. He's doing what we did in the garden before the fall. Abel looked at her with concern. Mother, when your father and I first knew each other. Her voice trembled with ancient memory. Not the knowing of bodies, the knowing of souls. There was a moment when I couldn't tell where I ended and he began. When his thoughts were my thoughts. When his love and my love were the same love, looking at itself from two directions. She touched her heart. It only lasted a moment. The fruit came, the choice came, we became separate again, became selves who could choose, who could sin, who could grow, but I've never forgotten that moment of perfect unity. She looked at the arena, where her husband and a god were moving in impossible synchronicity. He's found it again, with Shiva. They've become... What? Eve smiled through her tears. One. Without signal, without decision, the two beings began to move. Not toward each other, not away. They moved in orbit, circling a center point that existed between them, drawn by a gravity that had nothing to do with mass. Shiva's 4 arms began their ancient patterns. Adam's 2 arms answered, not with the same gestures, but with complementary ones. Where Shiva traced a circle, Adam traced the space around it. Where the god's hands expressed creation, the human's hands expressed appreciation of creation. Where divine fingers wove destruction, mortal fingers wove witness to destruction. This is the true Tandava, Shiva said, and his voice was hushed with reverence. Not the dance I perform alone in the void between universes, not the cosmic choreography of destruction and creation. The true Tandava, the one I've sought since the beginning of existence. Which is the dance of two as one, the movement of consciousness playing with itself, the celebration of apparent separation as a vehicle for love. Their orbit tightened, their movements synchronized further, and suddenly, impossibly, Adam felt himself begin to dissolve. Not physically, not even spiritually in the way he had experienced before. This was something else. The boundary of himself, the line that separated Adam from not Adam, was becoming permeable, transparent. He could feel Shiva's consciousness flowing into his awareness as easily as his own thoughts. Could feel the god's ancient memories becoming accessible to him. Could feel careful. Shiva's warning came from everywhere, from outside and inside, from the god's body and from Adam's own mind. If you dissolve completely, you cannot return. The separate self, once truly abandoned, does not reconstitute. You would become me, or I would become you, or we would both become something that is neither. Adam's human stubbornness flared. I didn't come here to disappear. Then you must find the balance, the edge where we are one enough to dance, but two enough to remain. The edge, Adam could feel it, a razor-thin line between unity and dissolution, a place where the boundary between self and other was visible but transparent, where he could see through his own edges without losing them entirely. This is what Eve meant, he realized. In the garden, we touched this place, then pulled back, chose separation, chose the ability to choose. But what if you could stay on the edge, neither fully one nor fully two, both and neither? That, Shiva said, reading his thought, or perhaps being his thought, is what the texts call the immanence of transcendence. To transcend the self while remaining in the self, to be infinite while staying finite, to dance on the boundary forever. Their orbit stabilized at the edge, and the true fight began. Not combat, conversation, not violence, expression. Every movement Shiva made became a statement, and every movement Adam made became a response. But the distinction between statement and response was meaningless, because both emerged from the same source. Shiva's first arm swept forward. I am destruction. Adam's body flowed around it. I am the love that makes destruction meaningful. Shiva's second arm rose. I am creation. Adam's hands opened. I am the awareness that beholds creation. Shiva's third arm spiraled. I am the cycle, endless and eternal. Adam's spine curved. I am the one who chooses to stay in the cycle, lifetime after lifetime. Shiva's fourth arm, the nameless one, cut through the air. I am negation itself. Adam smiled and affirmed. The exchange accelerated, faster than thought, faster than intention, faster than the gap between self and other. They were moving at the speed of being, the velocity at which consciousness generates experience. To the crowd, it looked like a blur. To gods with enhanced perception, it looked like two masters practicing forms so advanced they had no name. To beings who had touched unity themselves, the few mystics scattered through the human sections, the rare gods who had meditated deeply enough, it looked like what it was. One being doing push-ups. One consciousness arm-wrestling itself. One existence celebrating its own capacity to divide and reunite, separate and merge, be both one and two without contradiction. For Adam, the experience was indescribable. He had lost himself in Eve during their most intimate moments, had expanded beyond his body during deep meditation, had touched cosmic consciousness when he absorbed Shiva's gift. But this was different. This was relationship at the ground level of existence. Not two beings relating across a gap, but the gap itself becoming conscious and dancing. Every move Shiva made, Adam felt as his own intention. Every move Adam made, Shiva experienced as his own choice. There was no leader and follower, no attacker and defender, no I and you, just movement happening through apparent multiplicity. And in this groundless ground, Adam discovered something that made him gasp, though he wasn't sure if it was his gasp or Shiva's. There was never any separation, not metaphorically, not spiritually, literally. The gap between himself and Shiva, between himself and anyone, was made of the same consciousness that comprised both of them. The space between was identical in substance to the space within. Subject and object and the relationship between them were all the same stuff, playing at being different. You see it, Shiva said thought was. I see it, Adam replied thought was. But, if there's no separation, if we're truly one, then why does it feel so much like I'm choosing? Like I still have a will, a direction. The gods' smile radiated through their shared field. Now you've reached the final mystery, the paradox at the heart of all existence, which is, Shiva's atoms, their voice spoke in unison. The one chooses to be many, not because it must, because it wants to. Separation is not an error to be corrected, but a game to be played. Consciousness divides not from confusion, but from love, the desire to know itself from every possible angle. And Adam understood. The fall from Eden wasn't a mistake. The fruit wasn't a curse. Separation, limitation, mortality, suffering, none of it was punishment. It was all invitation. An invitation from consciousness to itself. Come, let us pretend to be two so we can know the joy of becoming one. Come, let us pretend to be mortal so we can taste the preciousness of each moment. Come, let us pretend to be lost so we can experience the glory of being found. The dance paused. Both beings stood motionless, breathing in synchronization, hearts beating the same rhythm. A question remains, Shiva said. Perhaps the only real question. Adam already knew what it was. How could he not? They were thinking with the same mind. How do we end this? Yes, we have transcended opposition. We have touched unity. But Ragnarok requires a winner. The tournament demands a conclusion. And we're both still standing. We could dance forever, Shiva mused, on this edge of boundary, neither defeating the other, because neither is truly other, an eternal expression of the cosmic play. We could. Adam felt the appeal of it, the peace, the beauty, the endless celebration of existence. But your children wait for a verdict. Humanity's survival hangs on this fight's conclusion. You cannot dance forever if it means your species dies while you twirl. Adam's human nature reasserted itself, not pushing out the unity, but expressing through it. I love this dance. I love what we've become together, but I love my children more. And there it is. Shiva's voice carried profound respect. The human difference, the willingness to leave transcendence for the sake of the finite, to choose limitation out of love. So how do we end it? Shiva considered. There is only one way I know of. The same way any edge dance ends, one of us must step back into separation, become fully two again, take up the burden of selfhood, and fight to win. They looked at each other, or rather one consciousness looked at itself through two sets of eyes. I'll do it, Adam said. I'll step back. Why you? Because Adam searched for words that could express something that was, by its nature, beyond words. Because I chose separation originally, in Eden. I chose to know good and evil, to fall from unity into duality. It's my move, my nature, the human thing to do. But if you step back into selfhood, you lose this connection. You become Adam the individual again, with all his limitations, and I remain on the edge, still touching unity, still accessing its power. You would be fighting from less, not more. I know. You would almost certainly lose. I know. Why would you choose that? Adam smiled, and it was fully his smile now, individual and human and stubborn and beautiful. Because that's what fathers do. We step down so our children can step up. We choose less for ourselves so they can have more. We sacrifice transcendence for dirty diapers and sleepless nights and 1,000 daily deaths of ego. His eyes, all three of them, blazed with something that had nothing to do with cosmic power. You want to know the human difference, Shiva? Here it is. We don't stay in paradise. We leave, not because we're exiled, but because there's work to do, children to raise, a world to build, lives to live that are messy and painful and mortal and infinitely precious because of it. He took a breath. So yes, I'll step back. I'll become separate again. I'll fight you from limitation instead of transcendence, and I'll probably lose. His jaw set. But I'll lose as a father. I'll lose as a human. I'll lose as someone who chose love over enlightenment again and again, and who would make the same choice every time. Shiva watched as Adam did the impossible. The human contracted, not physically, spiritually, pulled his consciousness back from the shared field, drew in his edges, rebuilt the boundaries that had dissolved, became once again a self. It looked like death. To anyone who had experienced the bliss of unity, watching Adam abandon it was like watching someone voluntarily stop breathing. Every mystic in the audience winced. Every god who had touched transcendence shuddered. But Adam kept going. He drew back until he was fully here, fully in his body, fully in his individuality, fully Adam the first man again. The golden lines on his body dimmed, his third eye flickered. His connection to the infinite narrowed back to what his finite form could contain, and he smiled. "Ready," he said. Shiva stared at him with an expression that defied categorization. "In all my eternities," the god said slowly, "I have never witnessed greater courage. Not the courage to face death, the courage to face life, to choose limitation after tasting freedom, to embrace the prison after seeing beyond its walls." He raised his forearms. "I was already prepared to respect you, Father of humanity. Now I am prepared to honor you. Let us finish this." The final exchange.
He told me quiet was pretty. He told me symmetry was destiny. But I came here to break algorithms, not bow to them.
I was. Yeah, they told me quiet was pretty. They told me symmetry was destiny. But I came here to break algorithms, not bow to them. I was
Born with soft symmetry, threat to the machinery. Quiet like a prophecy, bent out of scenery. They said grace is currency. Smile while they auction me. Mind me for my glow, then sold it back as irony.
every mirror turned sermon. Every stare was a tax. Mind, I'm processed. Track like a flag. My beauty got a barcode. My silence got a feed. They monetize the ache. Calls, exploitation free.
I move like poetry, they label it content. Speak about wonder, they demand more context. Laugh for 15 seconds, cry to make a trend. My loneliness got sponsors trying to pay to be my friend.
But listen,
You can drain my light, rename my grace, but the silence I command, you'll never own that space. You can drain my light, rename my grace, but the silence I command, you'll never own that space.
luck ain't a blessing. Luck's a dead machine. Grinding pedals in the powder just to keep the image clean. Smile for the masses, bend but don't scream. That's the gospel of a cage dressed up like a dream. Yeah. Every pose is a product, every breath is a brand. Strip the wings off, angels just to help them understand. My muse under the rust, go tight in defense. Guarding one true note, that still makes any sense.
They say I'm lucky, say I'm chosen, but my worth in the eyes to stay frozen. I'm on fire in the frame, they keep closing. God is a grid, they keep loading. So hear me, you can drain my light, rename my grace, but you'll never take the quiet that rises when I stop the chase. You can drain my light, rename my grace, but you'll never take the quiet that rises when I stop the chase. I don't finish, I don't break, I just stop performing and the world shakes. I don't finish, I don't break, I just stop performing and the world shakes.
Shiva attacked with everything, all four arms, all three eyes, the full power of the Tandava that could unmake universes. He moved at velocities that transcended time, struck with forces that could collapse dimensions, wielded the fundamental energies of creation and destruction with perfect mastery. And Adam stood his ground. Not because he could match Shiva's power. He couldn't. Not because his eyes of the Lord could copy the god's techniques. They couldn't. Not fully. Not anymore. Not because his awakened chakras gave him cosmic strength. They had dimmed when he stepped back into selfhood. Adam stood his ground because that's what fathers do. They plant themselves between their children and the darkness. They absorb the blows that would otherwise destroy what they love. They take the hits because someone has to, and they'll be damned if it's their kids. Shiva's first strike connected. Adam's body cracked like porcelain, golden light bleeding from the fractures. Shiva's second strike connected. Adam's left arm shattered, not physically, but spiritually. One of his chakras went dark. Shiva's third strike connected. Adam's third eye closed, damaged beyond use. His perception narrowed to merely human. But he didn't fall. Why? Shiva demanded, his fourth arm raised for the killing blow. You could end this. You could step back to the edge, reconnect with the unity, and this would become another eternal dance. Why do you insist on receiving blows you cannot survive? Adam looked up at the god with eyes that were purely human now. Just two, just mortal, just the simple mirrors that had first opened in Eden. Because, he said through blood and breaking body, this is what I have to teach you. What? The final lesson. The one beyond all your tantric texts. The one that even infinite consciousness needs to learn again and again. He reached up, his remaining arm trembling with damage, and touched Shiva's face. Love isn't about staying in unity. Love is about leaving unity, choosing separation, and then bridging that separation through a million small acts of connection. A glance, a touch, a word, a sacrifice. His eyes met the gods. That's why consciousness became many, not to dissolve back into one, to love back into one, to experience the joy of reunion over and over from every possible configuration of apparent separation. Shiva's fourth arm trembled. The dance of unity is beautiful, Adam continued. But do you know what's more beautiful? The dance of reunion. Two separate beings, choosing freely, consciously against all the entropy of the universe, to come together. That's the miracle, Shiva. Not the oneness, the bridging. And you're demonstrating that now? By letting me destroy you. I'm demonstrating that love means staying present even when it hurts. Means holding connection even when you're being shattered. Means choosing relationship over safety, intimacy over invulnerability, them over me. Adam smiled, broken, bloody, radiant. That's the human secret, the thing gods forget when they live too long in transcendence. We don't love because it's pleasant. We love because it's worth it. Worth every scar, every loss, every death of self. Worth the whole catastrophe. His eyes flickered, consciousness fading. My children know this. Every mother who dies in childbirth, every father who works himself to exhaustion, every lover who stays when leaving would be easier, every human who chooses connection over comfort. He reached for Shiva's hand, for the fourth arm, the arm of negation, and he held it. That's why you'll lose, Shiva. Not because I'm stronger, because I love more. Because for all your cosmic power, you've forgotten what it's like to love something so much that you'd give up everything, even enlightenment, to protect it. Shiva looked at the human holding his hand, at this broken, beautiful creature who had willingly stepped out of transcendence for the sake of beings who would never appreciate his sacrifice. At the father of humanity who was teaching a god what it meant to be a father. And something happened that had never happened before in all of Shiva's infinite existence. The god wept, not from sadness, not from joy, from recognition. Parvati, he whispered, my children, my devotees across the ages, I have loved them from the height of transcendence, from the safety of cosmic remove. I have danced the Tandava for them, created and destroyed for them, but I have never... He looked at his fourth arm, held gently in Adam's fading grip. I have never stepped back into separation for them, never chosen to be limited for the sake of intimacy, never loved the way you love. His third eye opened, not as a weapon but as a witness, and he saw, for the first time, what he had been missing. All his devotees across the ages, all the prayers that had reached him, all the love that had been offered. He had received it from the position of a god, distant, transcendent, ever so slightly above. But this human had shown him another way, to step down, to meet love at its own level, to become vulnerable enough to be truly reached. I understand now, Shiva said softly, why consciousness chose to become finite, why the one became many. It wasn't for the dance of unity that was always available. It was for this moment, this connection, this impossible, beautiful, broken intimacy between two apparently separate beings. He looked at Adam with all three eyes. You have taught me what I came here to learn, not from your victory, from your love. His fourth arm relaxed. The killing blow would not fall. I yield. The arena, silence. No one moved. No one breathed. The word hung in the air like a thunderclap that hadn't yet released its sound. Yield. A god, the god of destruction, had yielded. Not because he was defeated, because he was transformed. Heimdall raised his horn to his lips, then lowered it, uncertain. What was the protocol for this? A deity forfeiting not from weakness, but from enlightenment? In the divine sections, Zeus had risen from his throne, his ancient face slack with shock. He yielded? Shiva yielded? Voluntarily? No one answered. No one could. In the Hindu section, Parvati had both hands pressed to her heart, tears streaming down her divine face. She alone, perhaps, understood what had just occurred. Her husband had learned something he had never learned from her, not because she hadn't tried to teach him, but because he hadn't been ready to receive it. He had learned it from a human, from a naked gardener with borrowed eyes and stubborn love, from the father of humanity who had just saved his children by losing gracefully. The arena floor, the aftermath. Shiva caught Adam as the human collapsed. The father of humanity was broken in ways that would take eons to heal. Chakras damaged, subtle body fractured, physical form pushed beyond all limits. He should have been dead. Would have been dead if not for the residual cosmic consciousness still flickering in his failing system. Hold on, Shiva said, cradling the man who had defeated him through love. Your children need to see you alive. Did we do it? Adam's voice was barely a whisper. You did. Humanity wins this round. Adam managed a smile, broken, bloody, triumphant. Good. Eve would have killed me if I lost. Shiva laughed, a sound that had never before been heard in the context of Ragnarok. Your wife is a formidable being. She's the best of us. All of this. Adam gestured weakly at his damaged form. I learned from her. How to love, how to sacrifice, how to choose connection over safety. Then humanity's true champion is in the stands, not the arena. Always has been. Adam's eyes began to close. Stay awake, little gardener. You have a victory to celebrate. Just a moment. Need to rest. Tell Eve. Tell her what? Adam's smile widened, even as his consciousness faded. Tell her I said yes, to all of it. Again, and the father of humanity slipped into a healing sleep, held in the arms of a god who had just learned what it meant to be held. The announcement, the Rainbow Guardian finally found his voice. Winner. His voice cracked. He cleared his celestial throat and tried again. Winner of round 4, by divine yield, father of humanity. He paused, looking at the broken man cradled in the god's arms. Adam! The arena exploded. Next chapter, Aftermath, the garden regained. As Adam heals and humanity celebrates, the true impact of round 4 becomes clear. Shiva carries Adam to Eve for a reunion that moves gods to tears. The balance of Ragnarok shifts, and in the quiet spaces between celebrations, something new begins to grow. Seeds planted by a battle that became a dance, and a dance that became a teaching, and a teaching that became love. Final tactical breakdown, round 4 complete. Result, humanity wins. Method, divine yield. Shiva, post-battle status. Physical condition, unharmed. Spiritual condition, transformed. Relationship to humanity, forever changed. Final assessment, lost the battle, won something greater. Adam post-battle status. Physical condition, critical but stable. Chakras 4 of 7 damaged, recoverable. Third eye, closed, healing required. Eyes of the Lord, functional at reduced capacity. Final assessment, won through love, not power. Ragnarok standing after round 4. Gods, 2 wins. Humanity, 2 wins. Matches 5-13 remaining. Zeus sat back in his throne, his mind racing faster than lightning. The human had won. Not through superior power, through superior love. This changed everything. If gods could be defeated by beings who simply loved more than they did, if cosmic power could be overcome by willingness to sacrifice, if transcendence itself could be outmatched by chosen finitude, then what did that mean for the remaining matches? The king of Olympus looked at his fellow gods with new eyes. How many of them remembered what it meant to love? How many had grown so distant from mortal connection that they couldn't comprehend what they'd just witnessed? And most importantly, how many could be defeated the same way? The humans are more dangerous than we thought, Zeus realized. Not because of their weapons or abilities, because of their hearts. He smiled, and for once, it wasn't the smile of a schemer. It was the smile of someone who had just remembered something precious. Perhaps losing wouldn't be the worst thing, he thought. Perhaps we've been winning at the wrong game all along. Eve was already running before Shiva reached the barrier between arena and stands. She didn't wait for permission, didn't wait for protocols, didn't wait for anything. She vaulted the barrier, a move that shouldn't have been possible for a soul in Valhalla's spectator sections, and landed on the arena floor, racing toward the god who held her husband. Shiva watched her come, watched this human woman, the first woman, the mother of humanity, the one who had chosen knowledge over comfort, sprint across sacred stone with tears streaming down her face. And he understood, finally, why Adam had been willing to shatter himself. This was what he was protecting. This love, this connection, this bond that transcended death itself. Eve reached them and dropped to her knees beside her fallen husband. Adam, Adam, his eyes fluttered open. Hey, he managed. I won. You idiot. She was laughing and crying simultaneously. You magnificent, reckless, beautiful idiot. Learn from the best. She kissed him, carefully mindful of his injuries, and Shiva felt something he had never felt before. Privilege. He was privileged to witness this, to be present for this moment of pure human love, to see what he had spent eternity overlooking. I will leave you, he said softly, lowering Adam gently into Eve's arms. But know this, mother of humanity, your husband has taught me more in this single battle than I learned in ages of cosmic existence. Eve looked up at him, her eyes fierce with protective love. Good. Maybe next time, don't try to destroy him. There will be no next time, not like this. Shiva straightened, his forearms folding in a gesture of respect. I am no longer your enemy. I am not sure what I am anymore, but I know this, I will not forget what I learned here today. He turned to walk away. Shiva, the god paused. Thank you, Eve said quietly, for yielding, for seeing him, for dancing with him instead of just destroying him. Shiva looked back over his shoulder. Thank you, Eve, for teaching him how to love in the first place. Without that lesson, he would have had nothing to teach me. And the destroyer walked away from the arena, leaving behind a man and woman who had started humanity and who had just saved it. End of chapter 5. The Battle of Eden vs. Tantra complete. Humanity advances.
Shards of light, they bend, they break, dripping time, the clock's on make, metal whispers
paper trails, a loop of lepers, a glitch break. Fracture, fold, dissolve. Rhythms melt, then evolve. Rewind. Aperture wide, collapse the frame, let worlds collide. Liquid quick beats, dissolve the tide. A corridor bending, we can hide. Worlds collide. Liquid beats, dissolve the tide. A corridor bending, we can hide. Made sheer sideways, carrying seams, baseline pulses, shattering dreams, half desired dreams. Texture glow, pressure builds, the cracks won't show. Echoed fragments, a liquid song, breaking patterns where we belong. Polyrhythms we've recombined, sound collapsing, time's design. Aperture wide. Liquid beats, dissolve the tide. A corridor bend, we can't hide. Real